Good evening, everybody. Welcome on in. I'm glad you could join me on this Friday night. I almost hit the check, but I remembered it is Friday. Welcome to the weekend, guys, and a salty at night. I don't know. Anyway, welcome in. Who do we have here tonight with us? I got my mod team. Obviously, they are always here with us. Forrest and Rachel and True Crime Butterfly. Thank you. Pammy, thank you. And where have you been? I have missed you. And thank you for your support on the Buy Me a Coffee. I really appreciate that. Real happy. Good to see you. Are you are you worn out from that trial yet, hun? Hey, not me. Welcome on in. All right, guys, if you're not big on chatting, but you're big on listening, we really appreciate that as well. Everybody, please thumbs up. I just want to get the topic out there to kind of balance, balance things out. So let's hit the thumb button and get the topic out there. I was going to do this show tomorrow because I had a lot more I wanted to put with it. Because just been going through some stuff and reviewing some stuff and this, whatever. Anyway, I changed my mind. I pivoted earlier this evening. Brian Enton did a little something something, and I was like, you know what? We're just gonna do it. We're just gonna do it tonight. And what I was gonna do tonight, we'll do tomorrow because it's just as important as another case. Another case we've been following here, and it's an update case, and I want to get to it. But we'll do that tomorrow. It can wait. It's not like it's the Mickey Stein's case, but it's not major updates, so it can and will wait until tomorrow. But we're going to ease into tonight's show. I got a little something I want to show you guys. Well, two things. First things first, let's get a big update out of the way. It's not a huge update, but it is like an update on a case we have been following here. The case of Michael Vaughn. You guys know Stacy Wandra has been charged with his murder, and Stacy is flying through the court system. Where's my note? Where's my notes? I don't get it wrong. I don't want to have to, I can pull up the docket, but I have something else pulled up that I didn't want to take down yet. So I'm just going to tell you guys what's up. In the Wandra case, anyway, he had his a hearing, right? So he pled not guilty, and now they have a status conference set for June 2nd at 9 a.m. Pre-trial is set for August 4th at 9 a.m. They are set aside for a 4-week jury trial starting September 14th, slated to run through October 16th. Now, as far as we can tell, it will be cameras allowed, so that it should be televised, and if so, we will cover that trial. It has been we haven't covered a trial since Karen Reed. A lot of y'all know I got the PTSD, but this one I'll cover. Of course, if y'all don't know, he was charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping in the disappearance and murder of Michael Vaughn. He was 5 years old, also known as Monkey Vaughn. I wasn't streaming back when that case first happened, so I don't have a lot of content on the case, but it's one I had followed. So we will continue to follow and give you guys the updates. Like I said, we got the court dates are coming up, and I've got them on my calendar here. Also, we got one for Reiner coming up this month, too. I just realized a few minutes ago. What is it? The 9th? Nick, of course. I think the 29th is his prelim, unless something has changed. I'll have to double check that. There was also, I don't think I have it. Hang on. Saved. Where did I know where it is. Let me go look for it. 1 second, guys. Let me check something really quick. Butterfly, I don't know where I put what you sent me that Nick Reiner's brother had written on the Substack. I don't know where I put that. Where did you put that earlier in the Discord? Did you put it in there? So Rob Reiner's son, sorry, I was checking something, wrote a Substack article, guys, about his parents. That's what I was looking for real quick. A cat? What? Oh my God, this cat just freaked me out. Jeez. And I got the puppy put up because I thought, puppy needs to go to bed. I won't be bothered. The cat is like, oh, here I come. Ow. Hold on, guys. I'll look for that in a second. All right, let me get this cat out of my lap before she scratches me. She's a meanie. She's mean. I have to be careful with her. She'll beat you up. Okay. She attacks. You think you put it in the general? Okay. That's the one thing I did not have set aside for us to look at. Okay, let me see. Oh, did you see what I posted about Nerdy Attic being over there at the house where Timothy Hudson's been staying? Ugh. So Timothy Hudson is the brother, half stepbrother of Anna Kepner, and allegedly there is a sign outside of the home where he is living or staying at, and it says there's a sign outside of his uncle's property that warns that trespassers will be met with extreme prejudice. They're in Florida and they may have the stand your ground. I wouldn't go there. I just wouldn't stalk people's houses. Okay, found it. Well, actually I found the article, but I want to go in and get the actual Substack where I thought I dropped the actual link to it. Okay, let me get it this way. All right, guys, got it. And now I have it. But of course, it took down what I. Okay, never mind. It's all good. It's all good. Okay, this is written by Jake Reiner. And we'll take a look at this. And then we'll move on to our next subject. Okay, so we haven't heard a lot, right, from the Reiner children since their parents were murdered. There's no other way to put it because that's what they were. Okay, so that's a long time ago. They were little babies. Okay, he goes on to say, on the afternoon of December 14th, I was in Union Station at a celebration of life for one of my best friends, Christian Anderson, who died in October. It was at that moment I received a call from my sister Romy telling me our father was dead. Minutes later, she called back telling me our mother was dead. The 45-minute, that tells you she did not realize in the beginning it was both parents. Why? Were they in separate rooms? I can't, I always wondered that. We have no concrete information about them, they're in the bedrooms, the kitchen, one in one room, one or the other. Maybe she didn't know, maybe they were in the same room, but she didn't know one wasn't. It's just odd that she didn't know right away they both were. So he gets, she calls him back minutes later. The 45-minute Lyft ride from downtown to the west side was unbearable. Or, I'm sorry, Undurable. I said unbearable. Okay. My world, as I knew it, had collapsed. I was in a trance. The only thing I could focus on was that I needed to get to my childhood home. I needed to get to my sister. I needed to forget. I needed to figure out what the hell just happened. This is my story. Romy will tell hers in her own way, in her own time. He goes on to say, I was robbed of so many things that day. My parents won't be at my wedding. They won't get to hold their future grandchildren, and they won't get to see me have the successful career I'm still seeking. It simultaneously breaks my heart and enrages me. Nothing can prepare you for what it feels like to lose both parents instantly at the same time. It's too devastating to comprehend. I still wake up every morning having to convince myself that no, it's not a dream, This is truly my living nightmare. I can't even begin to put myself in my parents' shoes, but one thing I keep coming back to is how frightened they must have been. They were the last people in the world to deserve what happened to them. They deserve to be loved, they deserve to be respected, and above all, they deserve to be appreciated for how much they gave to all three of us and to the world. They should be enjoying the rest of their lives peacefully while growing old together. Instead, that was ripped away from them, from me, from Romy, and there was nothing we could do about it. To me, my parents are the center of my life. They are my guiding lights, the foundation of who I as a human being and the most giving people I ever known, sorry. A lot of people have the luxury of having the best parents, the best mom or the best dad, but I don't have the luxury. And he's right. It is, you know, when people are griping about their parents, really think about it. Do you really have bad parents? You know what I mean? Because it could so be the other way. Just because you are our parent doesn't mean you're a good one. I always looked up to as the standard of what a successful relationship looks like. And the love they have for each other and their marriage is something that he always will look up to as the standard. My mom was my confidant as I was hers. We could talk to each other for hours about who was bothering us that particular week. Whenever I'd call her and she was in the middle of something or didn't have enough time to talk, she'd say, "Is this just a chit chat or is it an emergency?" If it wasn't an emergency, she always promised to call me back later, and she never forgot. Anytime I was going through a tough time or had a complicated issue to hash out, I leaned on her brilliant perspective. I always felt like she was in my corner. I get my intolerance to bullshit from her, and I love it. She was never afraid to tell the truth. She was also sensitive and always cared about everyone else before she thought about herself. My mom was really funny and constantly complained about how nobody in the family thought she was. It always made me laugh when she'd say something sarcastic and none of us would pick up on it because it sounded so genuine. She loved to laugh, and I always felt like the funniest person of all time around her because whenever I had a bad joke, she was oftentimes the only one who'd laugh. To fully understand what we lost, my mother was the engine, the backbone, and the heart of our entire family, and not just our immediate family. She was the reason behind why we spent time with our extended family too. She was the one who planned every Thanksgiving, complained how it was too much work every year, vowed to never host again, and then promptly hosted it the following year. She was the one who planned every trip. Can y'all? Sorry, guys. There. She was the one who planned every trip we ever took as a family, and she always planned it perfectly. She had a passion for life most people wish they could attain. One of our things was going to see musicals together. We particularly loved Les Miserables. How do y'all say that? I don't do musicals. And we made sure to see it every time it came to Los Angeles. We used to laugh together in the car ride home because we somehow always forgot parts of the plot each time we'd see it. She'd be in the passenger seat saying, 19 years in prison over a loaf of bread. That's the whole premise. Despite that one thing, we never forgot the incredible singing voices. My mom was the one who helped me move in and out of dorms and apartments at Syracuse University, and continued to help me move in and out of apartments when I began my broadcasting career. Her support for me never wavered, and I always felt how much she loved me. I feel her presence everywhere, every single day, and I miss her so much. Look at those, look at all those curls and those really big eyes. That's the first thing I noticed. Pammy says, I love a good musical. All right. I probably could if I, well, I don't know. I don't know. Depends on the music, I guess. I don't know. Hey, Dolphin, welcome in. Hey, Jet, how are you? Hey, Firefly. Okay. The way my dad presented himself in the public eye was exactly the beautiful person he was at home. He was authentic, passionate, and his sense of humor has always been my sense of humor. My connection with him was first built on baseball. It was my grandfather's favorite sport, passed down to my dad and then to me. We loved the Dodgers more than anything. We went to so many damn games. I will never go to the Dodger Stadium again without feeling my dad's presence and hearing his voice tell me why Sho Otani should never bat in the leadoff spot. It's been a minute since I watched some baseball. I used to watch it with my dad all the time, but I haven't lived with my dad in years, right? So NASCAR and baseball. When I was little, I would cry my eyes out when the Dodgers would lose a regular season game, he'd say. Buddy, you have to realize at some point there are 162 games. It is going to be all right. It's going to be all right. He took me on baseball trips every summer, beginning when I was like 11 or 12, and eventually we made it to every ballpark around the majors. My dad is my hero. I know he would analyze my I love how he would analyze my dreams or how I felt I could come talk to him about anything. My mind just always goes back to the character of Meathead, right? And how um, it, the way that character was socially, intellectually, all the things that character was. I feel like a lot of that was also Rob Reiner. I never got the impression out of all the dipshits in Hollywood that come across as fake or disingenuine. I never felt that from him. Always felt like he was really who he presented himself to be. I always got that impression. And I didn't know much about the guy, right? Except what I just saw in the movies. And I know he directed that badass video that Reba McEntire did. Does he love you? They blow up the boat at the end. That was all him. That shit was badass. I was here for it. I thought it was pretty cool of him to go out and actually do that video because it was like a damn mini movie and it was really good. Teach you to cheat on me, you bastard. I'll blow you up in the end. Okay. He had a good body of work, didn't he, guys? But apparently, he was also a really fantastic dad to his children. And it's really sad that one of them lost their way and never found it back. You know what I mean? And that happens to so many families, unfortunately. That one will lose their way and never find their way back. Theirs just turned out extremely tragic. And instead of something bad happening to the one that wandered, right? He causes the bad. It's insane. How many families live with that kind of fear, right? Is he going to come back home tonight showing out and what's going to happen? Those kind of things. Oh, and then you think of the children like um, the brother and sister that had to grow up and experience all that as well. No subject was off limits, he goes on to say. Whenever I was in a difficult relationship, he would challenge me and say, you need to, and I love this part. I was like, I felt this in my soul. You need to really think about what draws you to a person like this. And once you figure that out and break that pattern, you'll find the person who is truly right for you. You'll find your people that way too. You're a very wise man, Mr. Reiner. I'm proud to say I have found that person in Maria. I couldn't be more grateful she had the chance to know and love my parents. Just like my mom, my dad also supported me in whatever I wanted to do with my life. I was nervous when I made the switch from broadcasting to acting because I didn't know how he'd react. I guess I should have known because all he ever wanted was for me to be happy and love what I do. I wish he and I could have worked on a project together from start to finish. I miss him so much. It's not lost on me that I was able to have these incredible experiences that most people don't get to have because of who my parents were. But I'd trade every Dodger game, every Broadway show, every vacation if I could just spend just one more hour talking to them and to say goodbye. How many times has he sat and wondered that? You know what I mean? Didn't to really to sit in that and know how privileged he really was and had all these experiences they were able to afford as a family, but not like in a spoiled rich kid way, but it's really fondly remembering his parents, but would give all that up if he could just have them one more time. Wonder what Nick thinks today. I hear he's pissed off at everybody and wants to write a tell-all book about all of them. That's what I heard. But I thought he was insane and couldn't speak, so I'm not sure what's happening. We'll find out. Oh yeah, he don't have that fancy attorney anymore, does he? No, he does not. Because I don't think the brother and the sister were willing to pay for Alan Jackson to defend their brother. Ew. Ew. That would have left a bad taste on my mouth for Alan Jackson. So bad. Anyway, okay. Sorry. Rant over. Back on track. When you are not living through a tragedy the specific way Romy and I are, it's hard to wrap your head around just how horrific this has been. Because they weren't your parents, it might be easier to move forward or even forget for a moment about what happened that day. But for us, it's every single day. They probably replay that night, even though they weren't. He wasn't at that party that they all went to. Before everything happened. But just to go through, all the night's events and what coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? What could have stopped it? What could have changed it? That you can't beat yourself up with those questions after a tragedy. You just simply can't do it. You're going to feel that for a moment and let yourself feel it, but move past it. Because there's nothing you could have done to change the thing. Nothing you could have done. And those kind of thoughts will eat you alive. Know from experience. I'm just trying to offer comforting advice to anybody who might need that. Let yourself feel it and then heal it. And he says, every day since then has been horrendous. Every meeting we take, every person we talk to, every tear we shed, every moment we make is connected to our parents being murdered. Notice how he words that, murdered. He don't even try to sugarcoat it, right? In the middle of trying to process the most devastating moment of your life, the world demands meetings, paperwork, decisions, and explanations, as if documentation must come before morning. Savannah, you need to read this, baby girl. Where you at? My goal in writing this piece is to offer some insight, not only to what I lost, but also to celebrate what my parents meant to me. A lot of people have said to me, I don't even know what to say, and I don't blame them. If I weren't in the middle of this shitstorm, I wouldn't know what to say either. It's too specific, too dark. We lost more than half of our family that night in the most violent way imaginable. Sure, any loss of a parent is devastating, but nothing compares to losing both of them at the same time, and on top of that, having your brother at the center of it. It's almost too impossible to process. I understand that people have questions about what happened. Some of those answers will come in time, but some parts of this belong only to our family, and keeping them private is the only way to protect what little remains of the something that was taken from us. What the hell do you say to someone who is living through this reality? The truth is, there is nothing to say. I just ask for love and compassion, the same principles my parents lived by. Wow. I imagine some of that privacy they want to protect for their brother is on behalf of their parents. You know what I mean? Because I can tell he's fully aware his parents loved him, even though he may not have. You know what I'm getting this vibe about them. I read an article a while back about some of the things that the brother and sister may have experienced. And we're talking about Nick over there having meltdowns in the corner, and there goes all of mom's attention now to Nick. Or this plan has to change because Nick's at it again. It happens when there's multiple children, and that one is the one, right? Mom don't mean it half the time, but it happens. But it sounds like they were amazing parents, and they're incredibly missed by their kids. And I think every dollar they got, everything they inherited, they would probably be willing to trade in to get their parents back. But I don't blame them. I wouldn't give a dime to my brother's defense. I don't care how many people want to come out of the woodwork and tell me he's got mental illness. I so I will also then tell you, well, apparently these parents fought for years and years and decades to try to get that boy help, paid thousands and thousands of dollars to high dollar doctors who didn't do a damn thing. I got questions for those high dollar doctors. Can we go there? That's where I'll go, right? Those parents aren't here to fight that fight, but I'll fight it for them because there's too many out there like them with no options. Oh, goodness, y'all. Okay. Can only imagine what he and his sister have experienced, and actually, because Rob had the daughter Tracy with Penny Marshall that, he adopted. Laverne and Shirley Penny Marshall, they had their daughter, and then when he married, was it Michelle? Is that her name? Michelle? They had the 3 kids. Such a tragedy. Okay. Let's move on. The house is quiet. The puppy's in bed. The cat's gone to bed. Oh, she's in bed. Cool. The boys are at the rodeo. And I didn't want to go to no rodeo. Okay. I'm here with my peeps. We're hanging out. All right. Y'all want to before we move into the Idaho Four discussion. All right. So I do got some things we're going to look at. We're going to touch on the book. We're going to review a couple things, and then we're also going to review a video with the Cellbrite team and Special FBI Agent Tanzola that worked the Idaho Four investigation. They had a conversation. But before we get on to that, remember they had a meeting the other day down there in Pima County about their messed up sheriff. And there's been a guy because I spent the whole day watching that thing, like literally. So I know everything going on in the county. I know what to vote on, what to vote against. If y'all don't know and you live there, you should have attended. Like I said, make a change. There was a few things I can recommend you do and don't do if you want some advice, because I watched the meeting, right? Wow. So I think he's the vice chair. I've been clocking him, right? Lo and behold, he does the interview on News Nation. I was like, oh boy, let's watch what he has to say about Nanos before it gets lost in my shuffle of shows to do. I got too many things going on at one time. I have a sticky note all up in my way at the moment. Let me move that. I probably got enough content if I don't do nothing but stream like all weekend. We could probably get in several shows on just shit we just need to get done and caught up on. Okay. And When all this started coming out about this broken plea book and sources and different things, I happen to already have a nice little folder sitting over here. A nice little folder I compiled. Oh, let's see, when Brent Turvey's report came out, and I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Who are you, buddy? He was on an episode of True Crime with Sarge, Joe Jack Leone, like a long time ago. He was on, there's a YouTube channel out there he's on, and there's LinkedIn's, and there's websites, and there's information. I have it all. I had it all saved to a little folder, right? But when I brought it up a couple times, we couldn't really have an Idaho Four show. Shit would go sideways, and we were going to do a members only Idaho Four show, and then the Nancy Guthrie case happened. Nancy Guthrie case happened. Anyway, now this. So when I was doing my research about that, I was like, you know what? I got all that shit on Turvey. And anyway, before we get to all of that, let's watch this. Let's throw some shade at the sheriff. Oh, let's throw some shade at the sheriff. Shade at the sheriff. We can make a song. One of them AI songs everybody likes. Y'all seem to like that stuff. I don't know how to do it, but we need an app or something. I hear some of the most ridiculous songs out there. We should join the fun. Okay, Shady Sheriff coming in. Shady Sheriff coming in hot. It's pretty bad when the Board of Commissioners, has this meeting, gives you 2 weeks to respond, and during the meeting, all day long into the evening, now we're getting onto the topic of the item to discuss Sheriff Nanos. And what happened 20 minutes before they got to that topic, the lady breaks in and she's like, we just received an email from Sheriff Nanos and we finally got his response 20 minutes ago. And I was like, what? 20 minutes ago? The fuck? She's like, and now it's available for the public on the website. And I was like, okay, thank you. That's all I need to hear. And I went and grabbed it, and we've already reviewed it, right? But old Nanos over there, he's like, I'll just take my time. But when the people of your town and half of your department don't care for you, over 95% of law enforcement within the department do not want Nanos. And if you've been following the case, you know Nanos has got this big problem with the FBI. He's done had lawsuits with Officer Cross, the stuff in El Paso. Well, let me see. March 22nd of 1982 at a Circle K in El Paso, Texas. Carlos Urias was a robbery suspect. He was handcuffed and intoxicated, and he was beaten by a deputy, Chris Nanos, with a flashlight to the point he needed medical attention. He was headlocked and thrown against a patrol car, which caused him to bounce and fall to the ground. That is the sheriff of Pima County. The man who lets crime scenes go early, who is shocked when you hold him accountable for his own words, holding his feet to the fire. He didn't know what to do about all that. He's like, dude, I gotta dance, that burns. He needs burn spray for his feet now because we held his feet to the fire. Okay, here we go. Let's listen to this before I go like on an hour-long rant. Forget what I'm doing.
Guthrie's disappearance is nearing the 3-month mark tonight with no new leads, no arrests, and most importantly, no sign of Nancy Guthrie. Skepticism and scrutiny of the investigation, on the other hand, are in abundance, particularly regarding Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos. Since there is no progress to report, many are asking why. And now it's more than just bad PR. Sheriff Nanos is the focus of a probe himself, and it could cost him his job. It's not for his present actions, however, with the Guthrie investigation. It's rather about allegations in his past. The Pima County Board of Supervisors is leading the investigation after reports that Sheriff Nanos misrepresented his work history on his resume while he was at the El Paso Police Department before he joined Pima County's. The board demanded Nanos disclose all circumstances about his departure from the El Paso department and to clarify the dates of his employment as well as any prior disciplinary actions. Nanos' attorney responded yesterday with a 22-page document. It reads in part that whatever the sheriff did or did not do before being elected is necessarily unrelated to his performance of his duties in office. Whether others agree remains to be seen. The board will review the sheriff's answers in an executive session in a few weeks. For more, we're joined by Dr. Matthew Hines, vice chair for the Pima County Board of Supervisors. Matthew.
And here he is. This is the guy that I've been watching in the meetings. I like the way he conducts himself in those meetings. I didn't know anything about him, right? I just was impressed with him just from watching the couple of meetings that I have watched. And yeah, and then saw this piece. I was like, wait, that's the guy from the commissioner meeting. Okay, listen to what he says. I was like, is he going to come out and be like, you know, politically correct, supportive of the sheriff, blah, 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 you know, all the word salad of it all kind of thing, or what? He come out with the or what?
It's great to have you. Did he refuse to answer the questions about disciplinary action that was taken against him at the El Paso Police Department?
Yeah, it certainly seems pretty problematic to me. I mean, I've reviewed his responses with my team, with some other lawyers as well, and I'm certainly not satisfied with these responses. And what he did in El Paso, I mean, one of the things he was suspended for, 37 days of suspension in El Paso. 15 of those days occurred after he beat almost to death a handcuffed robbery suspect who was in the back of a squad car with a flashlight. He's a bad cop. He made really bad decisions and then lied about his past to convince then Pima County.
He's a really bad cop. He said he's a really bad cop. You want to hear it again? I do. Let's hear it again.
With a flashlight. He's a bad cop. He made really bad decisions and then lied about his past to convince then Pima County officials to hire him back in 1984. He also lied about that gap in time. He used to say 1982, so that got changed. Mm-hmm. But
you know, I was thinking about this when I watched this. I was alive in 1984, in 1982. And back then, in the early 80s like that, it was just like people starting to publicly would question law enforcement. You know what I mean? Before it was never like that. Like through the 70s, it was like the cops and robbers of it all. All these 70s shows were about cops. All of them, you know? And then in the 80s, it was like a distrust of cops began to happen. It was wild. And if you've had a distrust for cops, then you were seen as the bad guy, right? That's why you have a distrust for cops. You're the bad guy. It's like, no, maybe they are profiling people. Maybe they are guilty of misconduct. Maybe they are beating people in handcuffs. Maybe they are, right? That's when it started. And then Nanos was one of those guys we knew back in we fucking knew, dude. Shit.
The point here is this man, we shouldn't even know his name. We should not know the name Nanos. He has perpetrated a fraud for 4 decades upon my community, and it is, frankly, it's shameful and insulting to the 1,500 men and women of that amazing law enforcement agency that he heads currently. Every day he walks in the door.
Oh, man, if he feels this way, how many other commissioners feel this way? Are we gonna vote this dude out? Are we gonna allow him to continue to serve as a sheriff? Y'all should hold an emergency meeting of the public and ask them, right? They put a petition out to do the recall, but go ahead and just have it. Just y'all come vote again and see where the people stand now, if they got the nerve to come vote him out. Because somebody kept this man in office for a reason for a while. A man who shouldn't have won last time but did. And I couldn't understand, now that I've unpacked this guy, as to why that even happened. Like, why? And then I started hearing about them ranchers complaining, and I thought, oh, follow the money, right?
That story of beating a suspect who was handcuffed with a flashlight until, you say, beat him nearly to death. Were there charges filed? I mean, that would certainly seem to call for some criminal charges.
I don't look. The El Paso Police Department was sued over this matter, and eventually that was one of the things that led the El Paso Police Department to force him to resign in lieu of termination. That gentleman was put in the ICU for days, and there were multiple news stories about that at the time when it happened.
Okay, multiple news stories about it at the time when it happened. You're going to sit here, Pima, not you, Mister. Whoever's in charge, who's right above you, Pima County Sheriff, that's backing you, your biggest supporter in that community, in that town, in that state. Let's branch out and go statewide. Whose pocket is he in? And if you need somebody in your pocket, because a lot of times corruption's throughout the state, Indiana, Kentucky. If you need somebody in your pocket in a certain position, aren't you going to put somebody there that's not going to go by the book? Who's not going to play by the rules? Who isn't really going to care if we deviate from the plan? Somebody who's already got a record of I don't give a shit. You don't want that really good cop. You know what I'm saying? Not if you got nefarious activity. I'm just speculating.
What do you make? I mean, he is saying, look, whatever I did or didn't do decades ago has nothing to do with how I'm leading the Guthrie investigation and how I'm currently serving as sheriff of Pima County. You clearly don't buy that.
Not at all. Look, these actions are incredibly significant. The fact that he came to Pima County and the first official act that he did here was to lie about his history, and that's how he got peace officer certification. Nobody can be serving in law enforcement at any level in the state of Arizona unless they get peace officer certification, and he could not have possibly revealed that history to the board at the time that this happened, that he got a job. And that means he perpetrated a fraud for decades upon the people of my community.
And he's not going to vote to keep this guy around, right? He's lied. He lied. He don't even care about that 20. How many pages was that damn report we just went over? Was it 22? Something like that? Where's my notes? Yeah. He don't care. He's going to vote you out, dude. And I wonder how many more. I bet a lot of them feel just like this now that so many more know and understand what's really happening in the community, especially the ones that turn their head or just pretended like, I really didn't see that, but I did. You know, that maybe there's probably many, many, many that don't even know what's happening. The less you have in your little conspiracy, the better off you are. But yeah. You got the sheriff over here who was willing to discipline everybody and, suspend them, take them off of duty here and there and everywhere. Putting top detectives at desk duty, not allowing your top pilot to get into the top plane in the state. Detective Cross talked about that plane and the capabilities of that airplane and how even other parts of the state wish they had that same plane Pima County had. But guess what? It couldn't go search for Miss Nancy that night with its thermal imaging in case she did wander off the way the sheriff said she did, because he had grounded the pilot and wouldn't let him go in the air. Now, we don't need you. We got a helicopter instead, he said. It took them hours to convince him. We went over all of that a long time ago in the case with receipts. Everybody knows about it. Well, they covered it, right? So Man, they need to get rid of this guy.
How do you think he has handled the Nancy Guthrie investigation? As you know, there's been a lot of questions about how he handled the crime scene, how he handled the DNA evidence. What is your assessment?
So I'm a physician and a supervisor on the board. I am not in law enforcement, but I will say relationships in these kinds of situations matter and time matters. And I say that because it is pretty clear that his past run-ins with the Federal Bureau of Investigation back in 2015, when he was almost indicted for RICO charges at the time, which they did not end up going forward with, he has held a grudge against the FBI and refused to fully work with them going forward. And I think we see examples of the results of that with regard to the most recent high-profile investigation.
And
remember when that first came out after Nancy Guthrie disappeared, and it came out about his beef with the FBI and why and all that, and now we see this other stuff happening, with the lack of investigation, and now we hear, oh, now the FBI finally has the hair. Nancy Grace has a piece on Fox, one of her shows. It hasn't hit YouTube yet, I don't think, which talks about how the FBI got the hair, but now they're sending it to the lab that solved another high-profile case. You got Rex Heuermann case, ma'am. Yep, told you so. All that big to-do about, oh, the Florida lab and the Quantico finally has the hair. CC Moore said without a doubt, Quantico cannot test that hair if there's no follicle. They got nothing. They're going to send it to one of the 5 labs that can do it, and the Florida lab was one, but the one is Estrella, the one that did the work in the Rex Heuermann case. That's who's got that hair. If anybody's going to get a DNA result from that hair recovered, it's going to be Estrella. It's Estrella. So when that comes out, it'll be there. You know how old those hairs were on Rex Heuermann's victims? And they're the ones who said this belongs to Rex Heuermann's wife and daughter. And New York's like, oh, hold up, that's brand new nuclear DNA. What? We got to go to court and make sure this is valid. So they did. Their version of a Daubert hearing is a Frye hearing. And the judge said, yeah, this is admissible. This is real. It's coming in to court. That's their hair without a follicle. It's that big of a deal. And it should have been talked about more. And now we got a hair in the Nancy Guthrie case without a follicle. But I just want people to understand, it's not like the FBI got it and they're testing it and boom, they never do this work. They filled it out. And if you listen to CC Moore, she explains it beautifully of how they do it, right? All the results go back to the FBI and they work with them. But yeah, we'll let him continue now because he does not like the Nanos and calls him a bad cop.
Perhaps maybe jeopardized elements of that, do you think? Yes or no?
Very possible.
Matthew Hines, keep us posted. Very important what you're saying. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Now, I think they meet again in 2 weeks. I have to look at their calendar again, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And we don't know what they're going to do yet or what, the follow-up to that will be. But I think it's pretty telling. You've got a lot of people, it feels like, in that town that are not happy with the sheriff. Not happy with the sheriff at all. Y'all are all twinning at the same time. No, Happy, you're making perfect sense. She says, I don't think Nano's history is as important as the people that he put in places to investigate this scene. I get you. I don't know if I'm making sense. Yeah, you are to me. What his history shows is a man who's willing to lie, cheat, and steal, right? That kind of thing. His judgment is not what it should be. His I think he doesn't have the knowledge, enough knowledge about a murder investigation or even a elder walkaway investigation to know what to do. And he done got rid of all the top people in the department. That was obvious. The people he had in place, like it said, he did not have the right people in place to investigate this scene. That is on him, right? And his lack of leadership. That's what they're going after. His lack of leadership, the role he did, the putting people out that should have been on the ground investigating this crime. Instead, he's got what, three people who never had investigated a homicide? 3 years experience total or something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers. Yeah. They didn't even know enough not to take the mat. They didn't take the mat. They didn't take the debris out front. All the things that we all saw that they did not do showed their lack of experience, right? When the true crime community can go, oh my God, why wasn't that taken? Why wasn't that done? Not like conspiracy theories coming in hot, but oh my God, the basics, right? Why wasn't that done that we can see? How come those cops didn't know? Because they're not, we were more experienced than they were, obviously, and that's sad for Nancy Guthrie. That is the biggest thing about this whole case. And Nanos, you let down Nancy Guthrie. I don't know her personally, but what I do know about her is she lived in your damn community and in that same house for what, 50 years? She contributed a lot to your community, lived there, worked there, raised children there, all the things, spent money there, paid taxes there, planned to live out the rest of her life there in her pretty little house in her cool ass backyard. But no. And then when something horrible happens, because I don't think they could have prevented it, they botched the investigation from the jump. That's horrible. Let down by her sheriff. It could have been Miss Sadie from down the road that nobody knows, and it would have been the same thing, and it would have been just as sad. Miss Sadie would have been let down by the sheriff who thought she just walked away. Okay. All right. Lord, say it loud. I will try. I'm trying not to scream tonight. I have my nighttime voice. I spent a lot of time listening to stuff today and reading, taking notes, writing stuff down, organizing research, and dusting, right? While I was listening to stuff today, I dusted and kind of like piddled around and spring cleaned it a little bit. But it sure feels better in here. It feels nice. I love a clean space. It's like my jams. My head can be at peace when everything around me is at peace and calm and not cluttered. So I got that brain stuff going on. Rachel says we know how important those first few days are. We do. And when you look at how investigations start, right? Like you said, from the get-go. And if you look at the Idaho Four videos from the crime scene, like when the officers are arriving and things of that nature, you got the guy, and this is standard, it should be standard protocol. You have an officer at the front door. The house, the scene is, got the yellow tape around it. And there is someone at the front door with a clipboard, and they have to log every person going in and out of the crime scene. In this case, the house, just like the Idaho Four house. Every investigator, every crime scene tech, every person that entered that door had to go on that piece of paper, right? Who did that log in the Nancy Guthrie case? How long were they actually at that scene? Compared to like Idaho 4 in the investigation we see that was unfolding there. I know they were doing a good investigation. They didn't know to look for Brian Koberger. And because when you first happens, right? And they get there and there's this group of kids outside and you know what happened in that house. They don't know anything. So as stuff starts coming in, the roommate tells you what she saw, heard, all the things. The other one does the same thing they tell you. And you get this video from the person next door. Because you got nothing else so far in that house except y'all found this sheath, right? They found a knife sheath and they have it. Maybe it'll yield some DNA. Lo and behold, it does eventually. But then you got this camera with this white car along with several other cars and stuff. But whose car is it? They didn't know, right? They didn't know whose DNA, they didn't know who the sheath belonged to. They didn't know whose car that was. That's literally all they had. But they were investigating every freaking thing. We read so many documents that came out once the case was over and Koberger pled guilty. And the Moscow PD did document drops. The courts done a small batch from the Idaho courts, but the rest all came from Moscow Police Department, Idaho State Police. Then there's been some lawsuits about that. There's been photos, all the things. But if you look at the investigation part, they literally were looking at everything they had to get their hands on. If they got a lead from somebody about a strange person seen over here or over there, they were looking at it. If one of the roommates or one of the friends suggested something, they were looking at that. Hoodie guy that was at the garb truck with the girls, they searched his whole apartment. It was all that you can see, all the things they were looking for. They still didn't know who Brian Koberger was. Now, it appears WSU found a car, in the parking lot, not once but twice, and they notified Moscow, and the heat is on. But that's not what happened. They know it. The chief has come out and said, we never called Moscow and told them about the car because it was the wrong year. So they knew about Brian Koberger when the IGG came in. The sheath DNA was developed at the Idaho State Police lab. It leaves Moscow, goes to the Idaho State Police. They develop a profile from single source male DNA found on the snap of the knife sheath. From there, it goes to Othram Lab in Texas. Not to develop a profile from the sheath, but to take the sheath did not go. Okay. The profile went. Now they upload the profile through the front doors, the legal way, into the 3 legal IgG databases, or the 3 legal DNA databases to find your relatives. And they land on some relatives of Brian Koberger, but still not Brian Koberger. Just some, could be. They even approached those brothers, cousins, which one was it for sure? They didn't want to cooperate. They're like, whoa, I don't want to know. It wasn't me, but I don't want to know. They knew it wasn't them, right? Finally, it goes from Othram Lab to the FBI. FBI has to go by guidelines, but they don't have to abide by the guidelines that tells them upload through the 3 legal databases. Back then, they weren't working with Kash Patel and the president and the private sector to serve those lawful subpoenas. So they went the back door, and Ann Taylor knew it, couldn't do a damn thing about it. It is what it is. They got the name, though, and there's your guys, Brian Koberger, and I'll go get him. Then, lo and behold, you can't go to court and say, hey, it's him because this family tree says that's him. So that's what the court would have said. So But wait, we got this white car on camera, and look, he drives one just like it. Look, he lived at this apartment just miles away. Look, we got phone records now. He's pinging all over their house. Uh, you know, oh my God, he ordered a sheath replacement. Damn, he ordered a whole ass K bar. Things like that started happening. You had to have all that to go to court with, because in the end, they were never going to walk into that trial and say a word about IGG. They went to court and had hearings about it. And they had to come up in an agreement between the prosecution and the defense on how to handle that tip. It became the tip. The jury was going to hear it was a tip that led them to Brian Kohberger. So tell me again, everybody, how WSU found that freaking car and called him and told him all about it. Solved the case for him. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Anyway, I love that part. I cannot help myself. Anyway, so there you are, and then now the sheath is the heart of it all, right? Because without the knife sheath, without that DNA, never might have known whose car that was I see on that video next to that house. Because WSU damn sure didn't think much of it. That call never came. So if we don't have the sheath, and I've always said that if we didn't have that sheath with that DNA, you might have a different verdict. Convince me that man went in that house, right? Convince me he went in that house, because you can get me there on circumstantial stuff, but you better make it darn good, right? Oh, you got phone stuff to go with it? Okay, cool. You got what else? All the things. Could be a lot of things that could get you there. But without that DNA, it would have been different. So this book came out, or is going to come out, Broken Plea. That's one of his main issues is the sheath. And he thinks that, and part of it's based on Dr. Brent Turvey's interpretation of things. Dr. Brent Turvey is a criminologist who's set to testify in this case, right? Or he worked for the defense and did some reviewing and wrote reports. And I remember when that came out like a while back, remember it kind of broke the internet for a minute. Oh my God, stage scene, multiple people, timeline. I don't even remember what all his claims were. Whatever. So he is highlighted in this book, right? So that's all. And also, he names him pretty as one of his sources. There's 5 sources the man names. Well, he doesn't name 2 of them. He's got 5 sources for this new book, Broken Plea, and part of it's based on Turvey. And they say that there is a problem with the sheet, circumstantial happy. My words. Hang on a minute. Let me move this out of my way. Okay, we gotta put that there so I don't forget to get to that. Hold on. Okay. And this guy. Okay. So let me start look this way. Okay, let's do it this way. All right, so Broken Plea is the book, and it's by a guy named Christopher Whitcomb, and he says he's a former FBI agent. I haven't checked to see, so I'm going to assume he's true. Actually, he is. If you go do a Google search, I think shit pops up. And so he's former FBI, and he has written this book. He's written a couple of books, I think. I forgot the titles. You can look him up again. His name is Christopher Whitcomb, because y'all can make up your minds. And he's actually done 3 interviews that I know of. I haven't listened to one of them. I've listened to one, part of one, haven't listened to one yet, and I think there's another one going to happen on Sunday night. So the guy's making the YouTube rounds, right? This Christopher Whitcomb, the author of this book. What struck me, he's going to make a lot of crazy claims that he apparently believes in. There's a lot of people who believe in things with him, right? And that's fine. That's cool. But they know their facts. They know their facts. And they've been with the case, some of them, as long as I have. One of them's been with it so long, you cannot drop something on there and think she's going to believe you. Let me just say that. Shout out, Jules, because I think I know. I saw that. Somebody sent me something where I think Jules got questions for this guy. That's all I know. I haven't reviewed anything that she's done on this guy's subject, but I think I might, because I'm interested to see her take on it. But anyway, that's something else. So this guy, the former FBI agent. Now, when Dateline did their episodes, right? They did episodes very early in this case, and I think the first one they did, maybe it was the second one they did. They mentioned the 12 pings near the house and things like this, right? And everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's a lie, that's false. How dare they even put that out?" And then by the time the next Dateline had come out with the actual leak, Dateline had a whole lot of stuff, right? They had apparently Kohberger's browser history. I forgot what all they had at this point too. So much so that everybody was big mad about it on the internet, supporters, and Taylor was not happy with it. The judge was not happy with it, right? So it became this investigation. I don't know what's come of it. Whatever they're doing, they're just doing it, and they haven't said a word about it. We're just waiting. Last we heard, the leak was being investigated. Rumblings about it was the prosecution's side. Oh no, it was somebody on the defense team. No, it was some wayward cops that are mad or whatever. Who knows? We got sources everywhere. Look at the Nancy Guthrie case. They all got sources, so it is what it is. But all the people who are really upset about that leak don't seem to care about this guy's sources and how he obtained them. But one interview I watched did, and the way they framed it was like, "Oh, really? Okay. Not sneaky, but sneaky." Okay. Let me say this. He says that he is, oh, and during one of his interviews, he kept saying, referring to the leaks, and when asked about how he obtained the information that he got, because he claims to have a lot of information, stuff that nobody else should have. He has stuff, apparently, that was sealed that people should not have yet, that has yet to even be unsealed by the court. So how the hell did he get it? And we don't care about that part suddenly? That don't matter, because he claims to have a lot, right? Then you got a lot of theories. But anyway, when asked about it, he started going on some tirade about the leaks. Then he kept saying 2020. In 2020 this, in 2020. I'm like, dude, no, it was not 2020. Lord help us all, it was Dateline. But then I wasn't surprised, because upon further review of interviews, I was like, oh, this dude don't even know some facts. Like, didn't know them. He claims he had 4 primary sources. Dr. Brent Turvey was one of them. Again, he's the criminology expert for the defense. Like I said, he's been on True Crime with Sarge in the past. He's been on this other YouTube channel that he has. I forgot the name of it. Criminology Institute or something like that. There's a lot of information on Mr. Turvey out there. I think he's been kept out of court a couple of times as well. Like I said, I had some stuff saved. He also he says that there's a Chris Holland, former FBI, mentioned in the book, who is also a source. I'm like, really? Sources would name their names, Turvey, whatever. But and then there's also apparently 2 other unnamed sources. And apparently those 2 unnamed sources may have something to do with the defense. And I was like, with the defense? I was like, huh. So that rumor back about the Dateline stuff that it alluded to in that one document could have been the defense. I was like, oh, huh. Everybody's like, that's crazy talk. It wouldn't be the defense. Why would it be? I'm like, well, I don't know, but that was my interpretation. Why not? Now we know. Apparently, Dr. Turvey was leaking stuff for a while because you can't tell me he just started talking the second that plea deal was done, right? That's when he decided, I'll go talk to you about your book. Maybe, but maybe not. All right. He also was quoted as saying, justice shouldn't be a moving target. Justice shouldn't be a moving target. He also says that he believes in this, whatever this is he's doing. He says he's dedicated his life to it, but he doesn't know any of the key details. That's my 2 cents. He doesn't know any key details, but yet he said he dedicated his life to it now. Over the past 10 months. That's what he said, 10 months. I'm like, 10. When I realized it was like less than a year, right? I was like, what in the world? And there are people who have been invested in this case for years now, who know a lot of facts, like they're just they're there, etched in our brains. He doesn't seem to know facts. And when he was asked direct questions, he kind of would dance around the answers, right? And he would look to the panel he was on to answer for him. He would even say that. Well, you tell me, like, and when they brought up in one of the panels, they brought up the latent shoe print outside of Dylan's door. And when it got brought up, he's like, wait, you know about that? How do you know about that? And what do you know about that? I was like, what in the world? It's like literally in Discovery, right? So it's weird to watch. I have some clips, but I don't have them like set up to go. He said in one of the interviews that his what the F moment was when he was reading the Paulette Sutton report. And Paulette was one of the experts for the prosecution. Like, she didn't see the crime scene and stuff. She reviewed things and then made a report. Apparently, that was his what the fuck moment was when he was reading something in that report. The beer pong table is a big problem to him. Huge, huge problem. It is basically at the center of the investigation, he says. Okay. No diluted blood found between the 3rd and the 2nd floor. No diluted blood between the 2nd and 3rd. Huh. There's okay. We'll get into that later. Blood stain on a half wall. Ethan's, I mean, there's some of the things he says you can pull up in some of the documents, right? Or you can pull up in all the documents, even down to him saying there's now hair in Ethan's hands, and there's the document that shows where they documented debris in Ethan's hand, right? Some of the just kind of like highlighting some of the stuff that he was talking about. Why is the blood different in the bedrooms, he says, versus the living room hallway and opposed to the living room and the like the half wall. So you're like, you think about it, why is everything in the bedrooms looks the way it did, wound patterns, mechanism almost the same, but what happened outside the rooms is really different. It's like, well, no shit, Sherlock. It was very different because it was very different, right? Oh my God, it didn't take a genius to figure that out. But I think that really is confusing to him as to what just happened there. I was like, wow, up close, up close attacks in the bedrooms and violent, and there was a running incident in the other, area. Jesus Christ. And you got a knife doing different things in these living room versus the bedrooms. Like, it was crazy. The shedding mechanism was an issue for him as far as the coming off the knife, basically. Um, it's wild. He even goes into a theory about what could have happened to Kaylee. Um, we have heard over and over and over, if you followed the case a long time, we heard early on how extensive her wounds really were, right? And I won't go into gory detail, but Kaylee was beaten, and there was marks around her mouth that didn't make sense, as far as what caused them, like a weapon, a tool, or a punch, whatever. What caused it? Many speculate it was the butt of the knife, being used, which makes perfect sense, or whatever. But we know she was unrecognizable. It took a minute for them to identify Kaylee Gonzalez. Her parents weren't in the same state, and there was several people listed as living in that home. You know what I mean? And they had to get everybody's ID, but you couldn't just look at Kaylee and then look at the ID and match the victim. Xana, they could. Maddie, they could, but Kaylee, they could not. They had to verify that was who it was, right? Anyway, we noticed early on, through very early footage of the case when the media was out front, there was a gap in the curtain in the bedroom window on the first floor. If you're looking at the front of the house, front door, room to the right, there was a set of golf clubs in there. We're all like, oh, damn, there's golf clubs in there. Um, I probably got a short somewhere buried back in the past with those golf clubs. There were images of law enforcement carrying out the victim's items from the home to the U-Haul. Golf clubs came out of the house because there were golf clubs in there. Ethan was a golfer. Xana was into the golfing with him. Ethan was from a golfing family. There were even golf clubs in the vehicles, because the two vehicles belonged to Ethan's family, the Jeep and then the black vehicle. Anyway, his theory about Kaylee is golf clubs were used. And we're like, there's no evidence of that, right? And it's really crazy because these victims, like, are they going to let them rest at some point, right? How can you sit there and double down on it's a fantastic investigation? The cops did everything right. It is all the prosecutor's fault that whatever happened happened. And then tell your people who are interviewing you that you're not saying Koberger's not guilty, but y'all take this information I'm giving you and y'all figure it out now. I'm like, dude, they've been trying to figure it out for years and we've gotten nowhere. But anyway, it's wild. Now, I was going to do this show, like I said yesterday, and I was going to show you some of the clips, some of the interviews that he did. But today, Brian Enton dropped a piece. And I was like, because I felt some type of way about it because it's Idaho Four, and it's those four victims: Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. And I've never gotten away from those four victims. And I never ever want to get away from it, you know. And it's like, enough's enough. And then they don't release the documents, and they don't release enough about Koberger, and it just goes on and on and on about this town, and it's like it's never going to end. It's weird. But then this kind of thing comes out, right? And it's like it's not so much about everybody else or even the families of the victims. They're grown-ups. They're going to do whatever they want to do. Some will avoid this stuff like the plague. Some will see it and let it get under their skin and do. I can't control any of that. It's just what victims don't have a voice once they're gone. Madeline Soto never had a voice again unless somebody speaks up for her, right? The four victims here, it's the same thing. People love to talk about their, in the same breath, they said that he was here honoring the victims, right? I'm like, this is not, you're not honoring them when you sit there and talk about how great this was and how Koberger, we have to say he pled guilty, he did it. But who else did it with him? Fucking go ask him and end it all. Go write him a letter and ask him instead of writing books like this that you are drawing a check off of, right? He's like, oh, I don't care. I've already gotten paid for my book. So if y'all buy it, you buy it. If you don't, you don't. How about we don't? What do you mean, dude? If I've already gotten paid, he said. Lord. He must have been short on retirement funds and he had to find something to do. Okay, let's get to Brian Enton's piece because I could just ramble on forever and I don't want to do that. I could. I could get. Oh, God. I don't know. It's been a hot minute since I got like super fired up about something. Like I try to sit in peace all the time. I like to be zen. I need to refill my coffee. When I start this, that's what I shall do. Okay. Now, okay. Thank you, Butterfly. She just dropped the link. It's published by HarperCollins, and it is available there on the link. And I think you can pre-order it, and Amazon has it. It's like everywhere right now. People are talking about it. I've also got, actually, hang on one second. Let me look at something super quick. I kind of forgot about this a little bit. Just a little bit. Where is it? Oh, wrong place, wrong place. Here we go. Okay, that's about that. Okay. Hang on, let me see what this was that was sent to me the other day, real quick. Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. I had to check something. All right. So after we take a look at this Brian Enton piece, we'll stop and we'll talk about it. Y'all know the things. Go over there and sub up to Brian Enton. Give him some love. You can drop a link in the chat to his channel as well. Most of you already are over there. And after that, we're going to take a look at a conversation between the Cellebrite couple, as I call them, Heather and Jared Bernhardt, and FBI Special Agent Tanzola. They all worked the Idaho Four case together, and they did a presentation or a conversation they did. It's like a podcast. It was called Seeking Truth Through Data, Honoring the Idaho Four. We're going to take a look at that after we get done with this this bullshit, the debunking, the great debunking. But y'all are welcome to believe what you want and go get the book if you want to read it. You know what I mean? Go read what's out there for free. I'm not going to get it. I don't need it. Let me get my screen set so that way I can make sure everybody sees everything really, really well. Okay. Let me get set up here. Okay. Oh, let me fix everything. Come here, screens. There we go. Let me make that larger now. Okay. Now we're good. All right. It's our boy Brian. Not me. Thank y'all for keeping it real. Oh my goodness. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for being my peeps, man. It's like you find your tribe, you're here for it. Which one of y'all want to come up here and talk to me one night? Who's not shy? Let me ask where's my real people at? Which one of y'all isn't shy? I don't want to drop a link dead off in the chat. We got some crazy up here. I'm not saying y'all know what I mean. But which one of y'all's willing to come up here and talk to me? Yeah, chat's great. You guys are great. And thank y'all for joining the conversation when y'all are in the chat. We love it. All right. So Brian did a video, that screen is let me, it's acting silly. Let me fix it. There we go. That way I can still want to be able to see chat. Okay. Hey, Doug, welcome in. How are you? Oh, happy. We're so happy when you are here to be a part of our chat. When you are not busy modding for Gigi over there. You know I appreciate you. Okay. So the book is making the rounds, and a lot of us that know the case were like, we try to ignore it, and then it comes a point you can't. And now Brian couldn't do it either. And you're going to see that he kind of thought about it for a moment. He's going to explain how he feels. And I like a little shady Brian. Y'all know how our sweet Brian is. He's a little naive, but he's always so fair. He's a very fair guy. Brian's always fair, right? He never comes off as biased. He's one of the most fair people I think I watch, honestly. But yeah, he's like, it's like a little bit of a shady Brian. And I'm like, oh, I'm here for it. Little snark into Brian, y'all. Look, happy. It's okay. It's all right. I had my bonus dad. I don't like to say my stepdad. My bonus dad had family, or was from Tennessee. Or actually, he was from Maine, but had a lot of family in Tennessee. And I lived there for a little while. Yeah, I had a very different accent, and they knew me as that Florida girl. This one guy, here's how he would talk, Happy. Okay, me and my sister, we're Florida girls. We go to the only store in town. Literally, the only store in the mountains deep in the holler. So we go in there. There's this guy. He comes walking up like a sloth. He's all slow motion. He gets up to us and he says, hi. We're like, hey. He says, how yins doing? We're like, what? How yins doing? What are you talking about? You know, how are you guys doing? We're like, oh, we're good, Where are yins from? I'm like, what? So anyway, you know what his name was? We're like, we're cool. We're from Florida. What's your name? His name was Elvis. I shit you not. His name was Elvis from Tennessee. And he wanted to know what we's doing. What Jen's doing. I don't know. It's okay if you got a Tennessee accent. My southern accent comes flying out occasionally. So they say. It's probably there all the time. I just don't realize it because I'm so used to it. Anyway, we don't care and we don't judge. Thank you. There's the link for Brian. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to let this start. And while I'm going to let him do his little intro and tell us what's happening here while I get my fresh coffee and check on this puppy, make sure she's good. And I'll be right back.
For checking out my show. I really, really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I really appreciate all of your support with my channel. Let me start off.
Everything good as far as the sound? Y'all can hear it good? Yeah, his name was Elvis. I was about died. I'm like, of all the names in the universe, this dude has to pop off with Elvis. I was like, man, I cannot be further from my home. I miss the flatland. I miss the beach. I can't. These mountains are suffocating me. I can't breathe. That's how I felt when I lived there. Stand in the road. I swear, you stand in the road, and everywhere you look, you see nothing but a mountain. And you got to climb that bitch to get somewhere. And I'm like, no, I need to stand there and be able to look out and see flat land, open space, and let me breathe the air. Right? Let me breathe the air. Okay, enough of that. Brian Enton.
This episode by saying that one of the cases that I have covered more closely than anything else in my entire career is the Idaho murders. Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogen, and Xana Kernodle brutally killed in their college house. I was in Moscow, Idaho for months after it happened, basically moved there. I was in Pennsylvania when Bryan Kohberger was arrested. I was at almost every single Bryan Kohberger hearing. I would go back and forth to Moscow, and then I would go back and forth to Boise once the trial got moved to Boise. I have talked to most of the family members of those involved. I have looked at almost every single document accessible to me. So I feel like I have a real grasp on the case and sort of the dynamics surrounding the case. And Bryan Kohberger pled guilty to murder. He is the murderer. He admitted guilt. He admitted guilt when he took the guilty plea, and he will spend the rest of his life behind bars, no chance of parole. That's just fact. That's what happened. And before his guilty plea, if you go back and if you watched me on News Nation, I was very, very careful to say alleged killer Bryan Kohberger, because that is my job, to try and be as fair as I can. And I would say alleged killer, suspect. But now we can call Bryan Kohberger a murderer because he pled guilty. His DNA was on the knife sheath.
Man, just look, wow. Kohberger's crazy ass eyes. There was a time if you even said that's crazy eyes, you got called like the hater, right? Right. The snarky, right? I love it, Rach. So Anyway, I'm going to mute out for a minute, guys, and let Brian just go for a second because the boys just got home for a minute. I'm going to be on mute for a second.
His car was seen on surveillance video speeding away from the house where the murders happened. His phone pinged near the house, and his phone was shut off during the time of the murders. And there was more evidence, but those are sort of the key things that stand out to me. And then, of course, he admitted to it, and he pled guilty, and there was no trial. And he had, there was the big hearing when he pled, and then there was the sentencing, and he pled guilty and admitted to the murders. So I know a lot of that goes without saying, but I just kind of wanted to set up this episode saying that, because there is a new book coming out next week called Broken Plea, and it attempts to dismantle the evidence and make the case that either Bryan Kohberger didn't do it, or that Bryan Kohberger had an accomplice. And police have said repeatedly that there was no accomplice. And if you think about it, if you know the case, if you followed the case the way I have, the accomplice thing, again, first of all, he pled guilty. Police have said there's no accomplice. But even if you just think about it outside of that, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, because who would his accomplice be? Bryan Kohberger had no friends. No one seemed to really like Bryan Kohberger besides his family. I've talked to the investigators who went through his cell phone, and he was close to no one except his family. He basically texted no one except his family. He was close to his family, and he was close to his dog. So the idea of some secret accomplice, someone that he was close to enough and communicating enough with that they would be able to work together on these murders, it just doesn't make sense to me. And again, police have repeatedly said that Kohberger acted alone. I struggled with whether to do an episode on this book, but the fact is, author Christopher Whitcomb, he did get a lot of new information. I've read the book, and there's new stuff in there. The book does give us a glimpse into what Bryan Kohberger's defense would have been if there was a trial, and we didn't get to see that because there wasn't a trial. And Whitcomb did get documents that no one has ever seen. Okay, there's letters from Kohberger to his parents from jail. Those have never been publicly accessible. I don't know how he got those. There's FBI interviews with Kohberger's mom. I've never been able to see those transcripts until I read the book. The author even claims to have a recording of Kohberger's lawyer, Ann Taylor, talking about why they decided to take the plea. And there's even like quotes in there summarizing what Ann Taylor said, which is, all of that is new. Those are things that I didn't know about. So there is new information. And just like I've covered every other detail of this case, I am going to cover this too. And I also spoke with the author, Whitcomb, and you're going to hear part of that interview in a few minutes. So and again, I read the book, but what sort of appears to be Whitcomb's thesis, I'm going to read this to you. He says, what the world does not know yet is that Bryan Kohberger's guilty plea may have negligently whitewashed one of the great travesties of modern jurisprudence. In lieu of a trial, no one will ever know how a lone assassin with no ties to any of the victims entered the house on King Road in the middle of the night, committed 4 murders in less than 4 minutes, and escaped without a trace. What were his motives? Who was his target? Why did he not kill 2 witnesses who waited 8 hours before calling police? In order to answer these questions and truly accept Kohberger's plea, we must go back to that awful night in Moscow and re-examine the case for ourselves. Yes, justice remains the realm of lawyers and courts, but we are now all a jury of Kohberger's peers with every right to weigh the evidence as presented. Truth beyond a reasonable doubt is our objectives. What seems to be one of Whitcomb's biggest points is he has questions about the knife sheath that was found at the murder scene. And remember, the sheath had DNA on it that connected back to Bryan Kohberger. Remember, they did the genetic genealogy, and the DNA connected back to Kohberger. That is just a fact. But Whitcomb questions whether there was a chain of custody issue with the knife sheath, whether police didn't properly document who was handling the knife sheath. There's like a whole little grid where they're supposed to write the name and the date and anyone who was handling the knife sheath. And this is what Whitcomb says about that.
Here's the problem. The problem is the knife was placed in a bag. The bag was sealed, initialed underneath the tape, and it went to the crime lab. The crime lab said, we can't process it. There's no chain of custody. And a chain of custody is a cornerstone in the rules of criminal procedure that document the provenance. In this case, it's particularly important because we're talking about a few cells of human DNA on the knife sheath, and that's the foundation. So then it goes from there to photographs of the bag afterward, days later, where suddenly there's a chain of custody on the bag. Then the issue becomes, for the defense, the issue becomes the chain of custody form appears to be written in the same pen, a black felt tip pen, and it appears that all names on that chain of custody were written in the same handwriting.
Now, before he continues, that's one of his big things about the chain of custody of the sheath. Not that the DNA is bad or it's wrong or any of that, right? None of that. It's the chain of custody because somebody, the label, right? Well, there is an account on Twitter. She's an attorney. She's a defense attorney. I have followed her for years now. She doesn't tweet a lot anymore, but she did for a long time. And she leaned in heavy to the defense of Bryan Kohberger. She had a lot of good points, a lot of valid points, didn't always agree with everything she had to say, and we never always agreed, but we always were able to have a conversation. Always. This got her tweeting, and she called this guy out for that very fact right there. That is the weakest argument you could make to keep that sheath out. That is not the road and Taylor traveled to try to keep the sheath out, right? She never once tackled chain of custody. In fact, her co-defense Friday Filer wrote a big filing on a Friday evening, got dropped, broke the internet over the weekend. Perfect timing to drop it on a Friday evening, let it break the internet. So Monday, that's talk of the town. That possibly that sheath was planted. Well, nothing ever came of that either, right? So we don't know what this guy's talking about half the time. He's going to make a lot of accusations that aren't right. Now, there's photos of the sheath out there in the envelope. You can see the label, you can see the pen, that you can see how everything's written. I forgot to upload the photo of it that I have, but that's what he's talking about as far as the chain of custody. This wasn't signed at the proper time, and then it looks like somebody went back and then filled it all in. Do you see what I'm saying? That's what he's saying is the problem. Nothing to do with the actual collection of the sheath, how they, all those things that came after, that you need to, you want to have you want everything in place because you want to protect that sheath because of the evidence it could hold, right? But he didn't, and never attacked that DNA on that sheath at one time.
If that's true, the defense at trial would have challenged the admissibility of the sheath because of the chain of custody issues and the discrepancy.
It wasn't just recognized 4 days before the plea deal. There's no way. No, I don't think. I would be completely shocked. And if that was going to be a big deal and Ann Taylor found it 4 days before the plea deal, then she would have recommended, no, we got something here. Let's go for it. Because they had time. They were going to go to trial, and they still had time to file a couple of motions in there to get that, to do that. See what I'm saying? That was not in the cards, apparently. So you have to go with that. It could be a botched investigation. I agree, but he says, the author of the book says it was a fantastic investigation. He said that over there, the first interview he did with that guy, Devil's Advocate, is that his name? He goes on and on and on about the investigation and how the investigators did a perfect job. It's what, in fact, they did such a good job, they developed about 10 suspects, he said, and they gave it to the prosecution. And out of those 10 people, basically, the prosecution chose the one, happened to be Brian Kohberger. But I don't know how he got into that group of 10 suspects if they didn't know who he was. I'm just saying, I don't know. Turvey found it 4 days before the plea and took it to Ann Taylor. Is that what he just wrote in the book, or did he provide, or did Turvey say that? Yeah, well, if that's true, Ann must not have thought it was that big of a deal then, right? And if Brian thought that would have been a big deal and Ann didn't, he could have got ineffective counsel. Yeah, he's attacking the process.
About where it was found. And if the judge, and many, many people in my experience would say the judge would had to have excluded that evidence. If that knife goes away, all the prosecution has is the white car and the cell tower pings in a death penalty case where you have to have proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
It just happens that those cell phone pings are going to line up with every time that car is seen on a camera. And yeah.
So that's a big deal. It's a real big deal.
So why do you think he took the plea then? Why did Ann Taylor let him take the plea?
That's a great question, and I think my answer is this. I don't know, but I know what Ann Taylor said, because...
Okay, so he claims he knows what Ann Taylor said, and I'm like, how does he know that? And Ann Taylor and her partner, Alyssa Massoff, the attorney, her co-defense on Brian's team, they did a presentation recently with some attorneys there in Idaho. It was like you had to buy like a dinner or whatever, maybe a plate. You had to pay to get in, right? But you had to also sign NDAs. And you had to be in the legal field, or you can't discuss what we discuss in here. And they were going to discuss lessons learned in the Idaho Four case. I was like, what? Can I please go? I want to attend that. And I tried to find information on it. You can't, because it was like a private event. I was like, shit. I wanted to be in there and hear what Ann Taylor had to say. But this guy, when asked real questions, even with the interviews of the people who, I don't know if he was full on prepared for some of the YouTubers that like support Brian Kohberger. They got their facts, they got their questions, and they're realizing, at least one of them is really realizing, this guy he might be full of shit a little bit. And why is it cool that you got all of this stuff leaked to you? Right? Going back to that again.
As I wrote in the book that a person, one of my sources called her and talked to her and recorded the call. So she did not tell me, but I have heard her state in her own words why she did it. And her answer was that Brian Kohberger did it himself. She did not change his plea, or he didn't, he made up his own mind and she doesn't know why. She said that number one.
So Whitcomb is saying that the knife sheath could have been thrown out in a trial, which would have led to Kohberger not getting convicted, he says. And he says all the prosecution would have is the white car and the cell phone pings. So first of all, Kohberger's car repeatedly going by the murder house and then speeding away is legit evidence. And the cell phone pings nearby and the fact that he turned off his phone during the time of the murders. So to just discount all of that the way Whitcomb did and be like, oh, jury wouldn't even care about that, to me doesn't really make any sense. I want to introduce you guys to the sponsor of today's episode, Incogni. Identity theft is...
So I'd have to agree with Brian on some of that there. Oh, not some of it, all of it. It was something about what Whitcomb just said that I was going to comment on, but now I can't remember what it was exactly. God, this guy, some of the things he says here.
Scams for stalking, harassment, and all sorts of other...
Oh, Brian, I want y'all to be safe out there.
Removal service, and it is so easy signing up online. It literally took me 1 minute, and look at data brokers Incogni has contacted to make sure my data is not public.
So that guy is going to talk about why Koberger took the plea, and Ann Taylor's like, I don't know, he just did. He talked to his mother and talked to his psychologist, I think she said it was, and then changed his mind.
Incogni.com/
I'm like, is it really that hard to figure out?
For 60% off. Incogni helps
And
wipe yourself from the internet. They can't harm you if they can't find you.
I don't really want to play with all of that.
Custody issues that he alleges.
He said that he found. Hold on a second. I'm getting a message. I got to check. Hold on. I'll let this play for a second, guys.
Which is a big part of this book. If it was real, if that was really a big issue, so big as Whitcomb says that the whole trial would have been a sham and Koberger would have gotten off, then why didn't Ann Taylor ever bring it up? I remember she filed motion after motion after motion trying to get evidence thrown out in the case and bringing up issues in the case. And if she thought she had a chance to throw out the biggest piece of evidence, which is sort of like what Whitcomb tries to allege here, then why wouldn't she have done it? Why wouldn't she have brought that up? Why wouldn't she have insisted on going to trial because this was such a big deal? Instead, her client took a plea deal and there was no trial and he admitted guilt. Kevin Fixler with the Idaho Statesman, he spoke with the Moscow police chief about these allegations involving chain of custody. He wrote in his article, which I'm going to link below for you. He wrote, Moscow Police Chief Anthony Dollinger, a captain in charge of the city department's detectives at the time, said his agency, in collaboration with state police, met the legal requirements for processing the King Road crime scene. That included the needed documentation for individual pieces of evidence, such as the knife sheath. He told the Statesman in a phone interview, the local department has not documented evidence chain of custody with handwritten notes in a log for at least a decade, Dollinger said. Instead, Moscow police rely on electronic barcodes and green stickers with evidence numbers, and that system worked in this case, he said. The Idaho State Police did not respond to the Statesman over several days to meet a requested deadline. The main thing is the integrity of the packaging to show clearly that the seal and signature has no cuts, scrapes, or tears, Dollinger said. From my knowledge and experience, this is not a game ender for that piece of evidence. Now, this is the police chief saying that. We followed the facts and the evidence showed that we followed the facts and the evidence showed that one person did this, he said. One person did it and he admitted to it. To me, it's pretty cut and dry. We saw zero evidence of anybody else being involved. So he's saying the theory Koberger had help is just that, a theory. They have no evidence to support. And again, who would it have been? Who would have been this accomplice with Koberger really having no friends or associates that we know of? And we've done a lot of digging into Koberger.
Here's the thing about all the ones out there who will say, well, yeah, Koberger did it, but what? If you're so convinced there's others involved, why don't you go ask the guy who did it, who helped him? Wouldn't that be the person to ask instead of, asking that question daily on a live stream? I don't know. It's weird. That's the one thing I can't figure out is either he didn't do it at all or maybe he did, but he didn't do it alone. Well, who helped him? I have one suspect in mind, but if that was the case, well, there were two, but I kind of ruled one out and one I'm on the fence about. Not my fault, but it's there. And Doug, taking a plea. Well, the thing is, when Koberger took the plea deal, part of the plea deal that he took was that he wasn't going to file appeal. That wouldn't even normally be in there, those words, right? Because you would expect you could file appeal later, especially if you get a trial and you're found guilty, you can get appeal. But taking a plea deal, you give up some of your freedom, some of your rights, because you are taking a deal, for God's sake, right? But he apparently gave up his right to appeal. I know technically he still can, but I don't know if Koberger's got it in him. Honestly, don't. I don't put it past him because I've said time and again, y'all can bet he's writing briefs in prison for people real soon. It's coming. He can't help himself, right? But I don't know if Ann Taylor couldn't get there for him. I don't think he's going to get there on his own. Let me put it that way. Because this lady fought for him, and I was there for all of it. Every single document Ann Taylor ever filed in this case from the time the PCA was unsealed. We finally got court documents, but then it became a sealed case. Every single court hearing I watched, I aired a lot of them. Ann Taylor fought hard for this guy. She did her job, and she did it quite well. She really did. I always had faith in her, and I always wonder, well, people who, think he didn't do it, they should have faith in her because she's really doing a pretty good job of trying to defend this guy. But at some point, what do? How do you defend that guy, right? You go after the evidence. That's all you got. You go after the evidence. His alibi fell through. It fell through because they never followed up with that alibi, right? That concrete alibi. They never got that. Okay, back to Brian.
What is new in the book, and this was something that I found interesting, is Whitcomb claims to have insight into why Kohberger took the plea deal and what Ann Taylor said about the plea deal. And he cites a source who had a conversation with Ann Taylor, and he writes in the book, she said there was no clear-cut answer, just that they had fought their asses off and filed every motion under the sun. So I asked her directly if she had talked to him, her client, if she had asked him if he had done it, if she had asked him for any details whatsoever that would explain what happened inside that house, and I'll tell you exactly what she said. She said there was nothing. She had no idea whether he actually did it or not. She told me she followed ethical guidelines and talked pros and cons with him, and then he read all the reports we had compiled. She told me he talked to the psychologist and his parents leading up to the decision to change his plea, but said the decision was his, that he made the choice for himself. And I'm sure this is probably true, but in the end, what bothers me the most is that she never asked him how or why. She seemingly never asked her client for a single detail about these horrific crimes. She allowed him to plead guilty, knowing he was not going to explain anything in court, that he was not going to explain anything to the parents of those kids or the investigators, who will never be able to put the loose ends together. In my opinion, she watched him stand up in that courtroom and take the plea, perhaps knowing it was broken. So this part confused me because for me, just thinking about this, what about the plea is broken? Kohberger decided to take the plea, to admit guilt, and he did it. He took the plea. The prosecution agreed to it. All of this happened in open court. He was asked repeatedly in court if he wanted to do this. And
I will always say, after speaking to the doctor, and of course, mother, who did not like the death penalty, feared it. He says, I'll take the deal, Mommy. I'll take the deal, Mother. Don't worry. Don't worry. That's right, Happy. Kind of like D4VD and J4IL. I did that on my thumbnail the other day, Happy. I used that, J4IL. Stay there in the jail, right? With no bail. Freaking heifers.
He said yes. So this whole idea that the plea, it's a broken plea, I have a hard time really understanding. But as I mentioned, there is new information in the book. There's letters that Kohberger wrote to his family and also wrote to his dog from jail. In one letter to his dog, and his dog happens to be named Scout, he writes,
okay, guys. So in the book, he talks about these letters that Kohberger has written to his family and to his dog, Scout. Now, so Kohberger's like, the vent people are driving him crazy. He's going to write. Remember, he was worried about his dog when he got arrested, too. He had asked about his dog. So people's like, this, whoever went in that house must have liked animals because that dog was unharmed. Because Murphy was unharmed. But Murphy wasn't a threat either, right? Murphy retreated. Kohberger wasn't trying to hurt the damn dog. But he's over here writing Scout letters. And Brian's going to read now from the book what he apparently wrote to Scout.
Dear Scout, earlier you and I, unbeknownst to you, communicated. I have no doubt that your heart was conscious of what I intended. Always of your pack, brother Brian C. Kohberger.
Brother Brian C. Kohberger, you always knew what I intended. What the hell did that dog know you intended? The dog does know. If he's sitting there staring at you in the face going, I know you. That dog knows some stuff, man. Ooh. What does that mean? So people over here are talking about Annie Guthrie's got strange ways of writing. So does this guy.
So that was the letter that he wrote from jail to his dog. And another letter to his sister. This one is dated April 6th, 2023. He wrote, Dear family, oh no, sorry, that was to his family. This one is to his sister. Dear Amanda, he spelled it Amanda, YZZ. In the abstract sense and via intuitive capacities, the august effect can be analogized to the gravitation of heart's promise unto the green pastures ahead, always in your heart, Burns, Brian C. Kohberger. I don't know what that meant, but on October 6, 2023, he wrote, Dear family, together, hand in hand, and galvanized by the wisdom of the singular heart, we triumphantly ascend to new peaks, thus apprehending the beautiful pattern, form of the labyrinthine path taken afore. Indeed, we have traversed many once novel territories, finding that when all else may seem variable and tropic, it is the one constant from which clarity and serenity are ever accessible. Love always, Brian B.C. Byrne, buddy, brother, Brian C. Kohberger.
He signs all of these Brian C. Kohberger. I would note that if I was the criminologist talking to you and clocking you, weirdo.
Then there is this long, and this was also new, I found this interesting, there's this long interview with Kohberger's mom that the author claims to have parts of when the FBI interviewed Brian Kohberger's mom after they got the search warrant at their house and arrested Brian Kohberger at the parents' house in Pennsylvania. It says, though the first part of the interview was not recorded, Special Agent Bailey clearly seems interested in the K-bar knife police say Brian purchased with an Amazon gift card while living in Pennsylvania approximately 8 months before the crimes. Mary Ann, who is Brian Kohberger's mom, did not know if Brian purchased anything for this purpose and was unaware of Brian specifically purchasing a knife for this purpose. The second part of the FBI document is a transcription of the larger recorded interview, and then has the special agents there. 38 pages. The transcript is too long to reprint here, but some sections provide fascinating glimpses into the man himself. Jurors often want context beyond forensics. They want to know how to reconcile the tall, awkward defendant. And it says, we supported him, Mary Ann Kohberger said. Both my daughters, they're both therapists, so we read a lot of encouragement and a lot of support from them. We've always been there for him. It seems like she's referring maybe to when he had drug issues at one point. It was very short-lived. It appears she said this in response to a question writing about Kohberger's drug use during his late teens. We were fortunate in that regard because unlike in our community, a lot of families were not as fortunate. It was very ongoing. And we had a lot of people that we know lost children to it, and we feel really lucky and very fortunate and blessed. He's my angel, she said. There's no better person to tell his story. He's my angel. They asked, did he socialize with any friends? He doesn't go out in big groups. Friends, no. He touched base with one of his best friends from Arizona, who's still in Arizona. But no, he's been mostly home with the family, just chilling. She calls her son a homebody. Says everything seemed normal when he returned home from school. Tells the FBI her son is a regular guy who likes to run but does not work out. Says her son was happy to see Scout, the family dog. Calls the dog his Bubba. Again, called him her angel. He's kind. He's your baby. Says that her son is not angry, not an angry person, not confrontational, does not hold grudges. Asked about girlfriends or boyfriends. He doesn't have any girlfriends right now, she said, adding later that he had a couple but not a lot in the past. When asked about his adaptation to life alone on the other side of the country, Mrs. Kohberger says her son has adapted well, has seemed happy in regular phone conversations, has checked in every day and sent pictures to his new apartment. Would he talk to family members? She says yes. Mother and son talks. Finished the semester with a 3.8. They asked how he sleeps. She said he was a night owl. And what she said, what's going through my mind right now is that this was a really, really bad mistake. And then the agents say that they sympathize with her. They're obviously trying to establish a rapport with her. She feels like this was a mistake, the arrest. And she said, so my son's face is going to be plastered all over the country, she said during the interview. And they kind of talked about that in a press release coming out. And she said, my son would not do this. I will stake my life on that. There's a mistake. Something is wrong somewhere. And that's what I believe. And that's what I know in my heart. So this I found interesting because we haven't heard anything from Kohberger's mom before this.
So there's an article out by the Daily Mail, and it talks about this interview that they're talking about, which was conducted by the FBI. And interestingly enough, they say the first part is not recorded, but getting your hands on anything the FBI has ever done is going to be insane to start with. I don't know if we'll ever get that interview, like maybe nothing more than a transcript from it. But that's where that's coming from. What his mom said was allegedly what she said during an FBI interview. Yeah, as far as Kohberger, this book, the mistrial thing, there was never a trial, so we can't do the mistrial. He still can't. He could have took the plea and still filed an appeal later, but he entered into special circumstantial, set. He had a set of things, and not filing an appeal was one of them, and he took it. And it's like, okay. And then lo and behold, he doesn't even got to talk. I think upon appeal, there might have been some things, right? But I don't think they would have been so major. They would have reversed the decision on the guilt or innocence. Let me put it that way. As far as this book helping him in any kind of way, there's already so much about what the author has said that has been debunked by a lot of people. We just haven't got there yet, right? The chain of custody thing, he finds that to be a huge deal, but it wasn't actually a chain of custody issue more than a labeling thing, right? Right, Happy, he waived the appeal. That was a part of the deal he took. Bill Thompson's like, okay, if you don't have to talk, if you agree you won't appeal, how about that? They're like, oh, you want a deal? You need to talk. He's like, I'm not talking. They're like, well, hang on. Okay, how about this? You don't have to talk, and you can't file an appeal either. He's like, oh, okay. I wouldn't go in, mother's afraid of that death penalty and all. Because Kohberger absolutely would have went to trial. He was fine with going to trial. Hell, we were set to go to trial, right? Till the last minute.
Something else with this book, there's a lot of specific details from inside the house, the conditions of the victims, really, really personal stuff. I asked the author if he reached out to any of the families to let them know that he was writing this or get their take on anything, just because I was curious like what the families would have thought of this. And he said essentially no, that he didn't reach out to them. There's these people out there that call them pro-burgers. I don't know, they are very, very disrespectful to the families. They don't think Kohberger did it despite him pleading guilty. And I just wonder, if a book like this will just sort of rev them up. They contact the families. They don't really leave them alone. Yeah. It just makes me wonder.
I tried to be very careful, and I've said many, many times in this book, I'm not disputing the fact that he pled guilty. I do think there are major gaps in this that suggest other people are involved. And if that's the case, how do we say, no, we don't care? If there's one or more murderers walking around now, what person thinks that, including the families, think that's a good thing? So I'm not making judgments for the families, and I suffer their pain. I really, truly do. And I've spent 10 months involved in this.
He has spent 10 months involved in this, and he really, really, really feels the family's pain. Did you feel it in your soul? Because I doubt it. 10 months. It took 10 months to write this freaking book. What'd he do? Just get like crack open an article somewhere a while back and saw the Turvey report had come out. And he's like, "Oh, that's interesting. This guy says it could be this, this, and that. Let me go write a book." No, you claim you had all this information all of this time. But you've only spent 10 months on it? What do you Was he sitting on all that information for that? What the hell just happened there? What's going on there? Something's wrong with that timeline. 10 months. And he feels their pain, and now he's going to dedicate his life.
When I could have done 1,000 other things, right? I don't have to write books. I like to. I wrote this other thing. I could write novels. I could have done a lot of things. I knew it was going to suck when I took on this project. I knew it was. And I knew it was going to be an issue. And for better or worse, I made the decision to pursue this story, which ended up being a book.
So when he says questions about whether one or more murderers are walking around, again, there's just no evidence of that, and police say that is not the case. So I just wanted to say that again. I spoke with criminologist and attorney Dr. Casey Jordan about all of this and about the new book. Casey, it's nice to see you. I wanted to first get your thoughts on this chain of custody issue that they're discussing, that this defense expert is discussing, saying that it could have been a big issue if it had gone to trial, which, by the way, the Moscow police chief has now commented and said, wait a minute, no, we did everything right. This was not going to be an issue. We have protocols we followed. They're just dreaming this up. But what do you think?
Well, I mean, this is a defense expert, so this author is really just, this is his job. The whole point is to poke holes, as many as you can. Now, when I look at what, the DNA evidence was, and it was pulled from that snap on that knife sheath, you're going to think that's the nail in the coffin for this particular prosecution case. The DNA on the knife sheath, I think the points raised are that there were possibly less than 10 skin cells, or it was, in other words, it was an extremely small sample. And the expert is arguing that this is below the typical testing standard. 0.16, I think, is what you're supposed to have, and this is less than 10. I mean, this is really, if you will, super ultra nitpicky. The DNA was the link that, as everyone knows, caused them to go to Pennsylvania, go through the garbage, get that, I think it was a Q-tip that belonged to his father, and use the family tree genetics, if you will, to pinpoint it. So the focus is on the DNA, because if they could convince a jury, and that's a huge if, like circle that, highlight it in bright yellow. If you could convince a jury that the DNA was not enough, or, that human error occurred, or that it was such a small sample, I mean, then you still have 5 or 6 other really important pieces of evidence that we're going to talk about that you can go to next. But I think their argument would be that the DNA, because it was the link to the arrest, could be fruit of the poisonous tree, right? Mm-hmm. So that if the DNA were excluded, you couldn't have made the arrest and you wouldn't have had Brian Kohberger at all. Now, I disagree with that. I happen to think that the cell phone evidence would have been compelling enough. But at the same time, the number one thing you want to attack in front of a jury, because they think it's a magic bullet for getting a conviction, is DNA evidence. But I'm going to tell you, as a defense attorney myself, the average juror doesn't really understand it, and they just want to know that it was there. And if it was there, even if it was a small sample, that's all they really need to know.
And if this was really that great for the defense, wouldn't Ann Taylor, the lawyer, have pushed it and either brought it up earlier on as an issue or gone to trial?
Well, I am not up to speed on all of her motions for suppression that were eventually dismissed, right? But they filed motion after motion after motion.
This was not one of them, though.
That was not one of them. Yeah. Thank you for making me clear on that. Okay,
yeah.
I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. I mean, it was something that they had to think about, but I believe that they considered it and knew that it wouldn't work, and that it would probably just raise the ire of the jury if they were going to be that nitpicky on DNA. All a jury wants to know is that his DNA was found there. They don't really care how tiny the sample was. And the minute you bring in DNA experts to geek out about how DNA works, ooh, their eyes glaze over. I mean, I've been in these trials. They just want to know it was there. They don't care how small it was. So I think Ann Taylor just kind of was like, it's not great, but it's not the right thing to attack. We have better things that we might be able to go on.
And at the end of the day, Brian Koberger admitted guilt,
Yeah.
took the
I
deal.
mean, they made him
Exactly. Ann Taylor, she went after a lot of things. She tried to get the indictment thrown out. She tried to get grand jury testimony thrown out. She battled the FBI. I said that earlier, I kept saying this lady has took on the FBI. And guess what? Ann Taylor was able to get things that other attorneys were like, dang, she got that. Right? Especially when she went into that hearing talking about, no, 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 I don't want that, just that little report. I want all the communications, the emails, the everything, the notes on the side. The notes on the side, damn, lady. Um, she had to fill out, and the judge asked her, are you willing to fill out a TUI request? She said, yes, I am. You have to fill that out to even get your FBI subpoena. And she got it. Now, whether the FBI cooperates or not is different, right? She got all that IgG material and forced that judge into chambers for days upon end to evaluate all of it. And exactly, Happy, she tried it all. She gave it her all. So I would have loved to have been at that presentation she's did with Alyssa, with the attorney thing she attended, where she talks about her lessons learned in the Brian Koberger case. Like, what do you mean lessons learned? What I want to know so bad.
articulate it in a court of law at his sentencing, where he took that plea agreement that he would be found guilty. And the judges do this. I mean, they're required to do this. Are you pleading guilty because you really did it? You really are factually guilty. We want to make sure no one's pressured you. You feel like you can't win no matter what. So you're just copying a plea, just to get this over with. Like, they really need to hear it from the horse's mouth. I did it. And he said it out loud in court. And reading his body language, he was telling the truth.
Yeah. To me, reading the book was less about, I mean, he admitted his guilt. We've all seen the evidence. You mentioned the cell phone evidence. I mean, the fact that his phone was just turned off during that exact time that
Exactly.
when he never turned his phone off before, usually, like, but he turned it off just during the time of the murders.
Right. So it's the pattern of the cell phone usage. I mean, I think it's attacked in this book by being, oh, I think they isolated it to within like 13 miles of the crime scene. Well, given that he lived in a different state, albeit not that far away, it's the turning it of it off. The idea that he's saying, I just was driving around that night without my cell phone. The jurors are going to sit there and go, who does that? Nobody does that. No one is ever without their phone. And they won't understand somebody who goes on a long drive and doesn't take their cell phone. So it's the cell phone being turned off that probably holds more weight than the whole idea of where it was pinging in the proximity of the actual crime scene. Yeah.
That's what I always thought. To me, the cell phone turning off during that time was one of the biggest pieces of evidence.
It was huge. Why the guy did it is beyond me, because my first thought, honest to God, was, why did you take it? You could have said you left that thing at the house on the bed, next to the bed on the nightstand, charging on the coffee table in the living room. You got up and went for your night, like you was gone stargazing, right? And you forgot it. 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes outside of town, you're like, oh shit, I left my phone. Well, it's okay, because you know where you're going, right? You go out to Wawa Wee all the time to stargaze. You know your way there, you know your way back. So why turn around and go back and get it, right? Why not just do that? That would have been the simplest thing to do. Oh yeah, that's my car you see. Well, my phone's at home all night. Why take the phone was always my biggest question, and will probably be my first question if they let me have a shot at him. I promise. That would be the first question. Why did you take the phone that night? I get why you didn't rent a car. That would be the stupidest thing on earth. You're going to leave a paper trail the minute you do that. So I get it. Why'd you take the phone? What was the intent behind it? Didn't work out too well, obviously, but you took it for a reason.
So then you said the pings. And then, I mean, there's surveillance video of him speeding away, driving to the house before the murders, and then
Yeah.
literally speeding away after the murders. So, look, I mean, my dad's a defense attorney. I get that they have a job to do. I get that they hire witnesses. I think this book is
We just learned something about Brian Enton. His daddy is a defense attorney. Well,
interesting because there's new information in it
Yeah.
that investigators had that we didn't know about. So that part is interesting to me, but whether it really proves that, Brian Koberger is innocent, one part that was interesting though is there's this at the end they talk about this conversation that Ann Taylor had with the defense experts before announcing to them we're going to take a deal, it's over, and they claim that she said he's never said to me whether or not he did it, we never talked about it. Is that common? Is that how it normally works with a defense attorney and a client?
Yeah, it's a great scene in the movie Primal Fear, if you remember that, with Richard Gere and Edward Norton, where the defendant starts to say, I didn't do it. And he goes, did I ask you that question? I didn't ask you that question. I would never ask you that question. And, this case, to be honest, reminds me a totally different kind of murder, but one of the heaviest murder cases that I actually was on the defense team was a man, Miraj Gochai, who was accused of cutting his uncle into 10 pieces and leaving him on the side of 684 in New York, very close to the crime scene of the restaurant where they both worked. And we, not to go on and on about this, but there was no blood evidence, right? And so we just kept hammering away at that. How could he have actually killed him and there would be no blood evidence? And what we really found was that the jury just was looking at this guy and sizing him up. And at the end, he was found guilty. And my co-counsel, I was always like, we should have won. The evidence was terrible. There was no blood evidence. How can you convict people on cell phone pings? Which they did. And he goes, well, we never ask them whether they're guilty, but sometimes they just want to tell you things. And I was like,
okay, this guy, the author of the book, made a big deal about how he was shocked. Then he thinks it's wrong that Ann Taylor allegedly has said that she didn't know why he took the plea deal after talking to his mom and the doctor, or the therapist, or whatever. And she never asked him if he was guilty or innocent, never asked him details about the crime. And the author of the book feels like she should have. I remember when one of the first things I ever heard Bob Mata say was, we don't even ask our clients that. And he's not the only defense attorney I've ever heard say that. You get the attorney-client privilege, right? But to do your job the way you need to do it with an open mind, you may not want to know you may not want to know unless they tell you. Your client can absolutely tell you the truth, and you're going to give them that opportunity, but they just don't ever really come out and ask dead on, did you do it? Right? But it's not up to Ann Taylor to pull the details out of Brian Koberger. In the end, it's not really her job. Ugh. The porch light is out. Don't fall down. Don't bump into shit. Happy. Fix the porch light. I want to go outside now and look at the stars. I bet it's beautiful here. It was beautiful out there earlier, and so it should still be that way. Yeah, Rachel, you've heard them say that, right?
don't tell me. He goes, I can't tell you. And we were co-counsel, and he couldn't tell me what he was holding back. But I surmised that my co-counsel had been told by our client, the defendant, the worst thing that a client could tell an attorney. And we never want to know that because it changes the way that we attack the case. We have to go in there not thinking that you might be factually guilty or not guilty, but that everything is about evidence. And if we can get that evidence thrown out, then you got the best defense that you could get.
One thing that bothered me about the book is having been at the sentencing and knowing what these survivors went through and what the friends went through and seeing the grief on their faces and knowing that they still have to live with this. I felt like, he really picked apart their statements and tried to make it seem like they were somehow not telling the truth. I had a hard time with that.
Yeah. Has he never been a college student? I mean, first of all, I can't believe we're still having these conversations about blaming victims or witnesses at this stage of our lives, right? We know, especially from sexual assault cases, that you just, in many cases, you just don't go there. It's not relevant. Whether there was a White Claw box, whether they were drinking, they cleaned up. I don't know. If the police were coming over to my house and I just had an all-nighter on a weekend, I know that
She mentioned that White Claw box. She's done watched the interviews this guy's done. Oh wow. Okay. Happy. You know what? I got a spot under the pole barn. We got a table out back we can sit at and do just that. Okay. I bet we would have some excellent conversations. You drink coffee? I'll whatever you, what do you want? I'll get it. Come on down.
there would be people, there would be students at my university who would be busy getting the alcohol out, getting the beer bottles bagged up, getting the bong off the table, whatever. But I mean, the whole idea that he would just take pot shots at these incredibly traumatized roommates of the four victims, these two women, and say, well, how could you not have heard screams? Or, in other words, like the inference is you were drunk or you were hungover or, you were high. And the mere inference of that should not even be there. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant because one of the best pieces of evidence, I'll never forget, page 4, right, of the arrest affidavit was her talking about the man with the bushy eyebrows and the balaclava dressed all in black. And I remember like reading that and going, it gave me chills. It was like a horror story when I read it. And I can't even imagine being the person standing in the hallway, having heard noises and whimpering down the hall from your roommate's room to see a masked man in black walk past you. So I mean, her trauma was real. The idea that she went back to bed after that was her curling into herself with the possibility of what this meant. And
Yeah, and that can be both sides. That was Ann Taylor's biggest dilemma, was how to handle that witness. Um, she can be seen as a barracuda and go there and eat her alive, or she can go in there and handle her in Ann Taylor's calm way and trip her up, because that was a problematic witness, unfortunately, because she was not lucid, and she saw a fireman with a vacuum 1 minute and a guy with bushy eyebrows the next. That will always be a problem.
there, but for the grace of God, go up.
But there's no need to continue to drag the girl for her young, intoxicated, naive self, I guess.
I don't think
But Idaho should not continue to release all of the bad stuff that she didn't do. Maybe that wouldn't happen.
any of us know what we would do in that situation. But, to Monday morning quarterback and say, what kind of person doesn't, call the police immediately? You're not her, you're not them. And we don't get to do that. The important thing is that her eyewitness testimony was really, really important in that arrest warrant, and would have been, I think, even more compelling than DNA evidence at trial.
And he never reached out to the families, which I talked to him about the book and I said, "Oh, well, are you concerned about what the families will think about this? Did you reach out to the family?" And he said, "Well, I thought about it, but no." And I don't know. I guess I would have just thought if you're going to write a whole book about a case, and even if it's going to be something they don't like, I would think just you'd have the respect to reach out to them.
Well, you nailed it. I mean, Brian,
And
it's about
maybe you'd
respect.
be able to I mean, maybe there's some common ground there. I don't know, for that reason too.
Listen, I've talked to Ethan's mother on occasion. I know you've talked to many of them and perhaps all of them. Um, they would have liked their opinions to be in this book, right? But to not reach out to them and even give them that option just shows, if you ask me, that the book is meant to be one-sided. I wouldn't call it a hatchet job, but it's just, hi, I'm going to write 500 pages on why I think this should have gone to trial. And
I think she has spoke to Stacy Chapin since the knowledge of this book. Yeah.
Hey guys,
It started over. Hold on. Hang on, guys. Anyway, so they're having a convert. They were almost done. Let me see here what the chat's saying. So it's wild that some of the stuff that this guy has actually been out there saying on these different shows he's going on right now. The book is wild. He makes a lot of crazy accusations. He relies heavily on the Turvey's report. Brent Turvey was like I said, he's a criminologist, was going to set to be the defense expert. He's been on some YouTube channels before. He's got, some expertise in the field. He has his own YouTube channel, I believe it is. And his report came out and talked about things like there was staging of the crime scene. There was a cleanup of the crime scene. Things that had been rumored for, the people wanted to be there, and oh my God, now lo and behold, it's there. But whatever his report claimed, there must not have been enough there to back it up, because Ann Taylor didn't follow through with it, right? She didn't persuade Brian Kohberger, look, we got enough to go to trial. What are you doing trying to take a deal? Have I read what? The article. Yeah. No, not yet. And they're not going to show, and it doesn't even show us the whole, like, the interview, but let me pull it up. It is out there. Let me see. Where's my folder at? And there's another one too, another file in that folder with like some of the facts this guy tries to claim, I guess you would call it. Okay, so right here. Oops. Where she calls him her angel. Okay, in the interview, right, with FBI. Okay, let me make sure we're good here. Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is, what is it, Daily Mail? It says, it had been 47 days since Kohberger fatally stabbed Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Sandra Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin in their off-campus home in the college town of Moscow, Idaho. All the girls have birthdays coming up this summer. On November 13, 2022, in a crime that shocked America and sparked a nationwide manhunt. While police were criticized for releasing little information, behind the scenes they had quietly homed in on the loner criminology PhD student at nearby Washington State University, who had since fled the state and traveled 2,500 miles across the country to his parents' home in rural Pennsylvania. In a stunning dawn raid on December 30th, 2022, agents stormed the family home and pulled the mother of three, Marianne Kohberger, and her husband Michael and daughter Amanda from their beds as the killer was taken into custody. Now Marianne's comments to law enforcement in the immediate aftermath of her son's arrest can be revealed for the first time by the Daily Mail, shedding new light on Kohberger's home life and his unusually close relationship with his mother. They come from transcripts and reports from Marianne's interviews with the 3 FBI special agents that day and are set to be published in the upcoming book, Broken Plea, the explosive search for the truth behind the Idaho murders by Christopher Whitcomb. This is a photo from a long time ago at one of his early hearings. That's his sister. This is mom. Oh wait, this one was from the day of the sentencing. Sorry, this was not the early. The early one they have a mask on because it was like the end of the like a COVID mask when he first got arrested. You see them then, but this was taken at the sentencing. And back here is Alyssa, the other attorney, that went to go speak with Anne about their experience in being Brian Koberger's attorney. God, I would love to be in the room for that damn thing. Okay. Coming out of the sentencing with Anne as well. With his parents staying silent in the 3+ years since that day, aside for 2 brief, carefully crafted written statements, the comments offered the first glimpse into Marianne's thoughts about her only son's involvement in the murders. They reveal how a seemingly blindsided Marianne instantly insisted that her angel son could never ever be a killer, and that there must be some sort of terrible mistake. His sister does look like Kim Ruth. Welcome in. You might have been here. I might not have realized that earlier. If not, good to see you. But yeah, they do look alike. Their eyes are the same, right? What's going through my mind right now is that this is really a bad mistake. What's going on? Like what's happening here, she told the agents. We know what our son, we know what who our children are, Okay. In the interview, the high school special needs assistant also offered up an innocent reason for why Koberger bought the knife used in the murders. An innocent reason? An innocent reason he bought the K-bar. Well, there could be, yeah, like a collector or a hunter, military guy who likes knives. I don't know. It could be reasons, but she offered up an innocent reason on why her son bought it. What was the reason that she gave? It would be interesting to know what her first thought on that would be. Why would your son purchase a knife like this? Well, probably because da 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 da. Write that shit down. In a stunning twist, she even suggested the purchase had been her idea when her son moved from Albrightsville in the Poconos to Pullman. Why would it be her idea? Baby, you're for the first time ever. And literally, she wrote about it in a subreddit about how we had it. It's on my old device. I have to get it again. She wrote about it. How her now grown son was finally graduating from DeSales and was moving to Pullman, Washington to go to college, and for the first time would be on his own. For the first time ever. Now, why in the hell would she suggest he go buy a K-bar to take with him? Oh, in case he went hiking to look at the moon and stars. Mother taught him to stargaze on the back deck, he said. They would lay down and stargaze. That's where his love of stargazing developed, was lying on the back deck with Mother. I wonder if they listened to Leonard Skinner. Sit beside me, my only son. Take a K-bar when you run. What the fuck, Marianne? What are you doing? Okay. Oh, Lordy. Marianne recalled a conversation in which she suggested Brian obtain something to defend himself in the event of a bear attack while he hiked. A K-bar for a bear attack? That's not what experts recommend, is it? Bear spray, act big, scream and holler, act big, it'll run. I don't think we're supposed to get close enough to attack it with a K-bar. Holy shit. Okay. Well, Marianne wanted him to be prepared. She's like, son, you never know when a bear is going to jump out and get you. The agents added that Marianne did not know if her son had purchased anything for this purpose and was unaware of Brian specifically purchasing a K-bar or a knife for this purpose. Koberger, going back to Ann Taylor, remember she said in court, speaking of Ann Taylor and all her emotions, Amazon AI made him buy that knife thing. And we really don't know who searched it because it's a family shared computer. Kind of like when somebody in Casey Anthony's family searched some shit on a family shared computer. It became irrelevant, no matter how bad that search was, because we couldn't prove who did it. Mother or daughter? Mother or son? Who bought the K-bar? Ew. Marianne would have been like, I did, but it was for the bears. Koberger bought a military K-bar knife and a brown leather sheath from Amazon in March 2022, 8 months before the murders and 3 months before he left for Washington. They were delivered to the family's Pennsylvania home. Wonder if his parents had a Ring camera to watch out so no porch pirates got their stuff. There's a photo of their home in Pennsylvania. There's Dad. He was captured outside the home after the police raided. While the knife itself has never been found, the sheath became the smoking gun in the investigation. In the frenzy of the massacre, Koberger left the sheath behind it. Holy shit, my cat just bolted out of here and that. I don't think she realizes that dog is in there asleep. If they start to fight, oh well. Huh. Damn it. Alright. The puppy is in the kennel. The big dog doesn't mess with the cat. She stays completely away. Alright. I don't need no more incidents between the cat and the dog around here. Jesus Christ. Oh, sorry, that distracted me, guys. My door was open. Well, it was kind of propped open, like basically, but the cat just bolted over. I have a fan sitting there. She just jumped right over that shit and took off. But normally I let her roam around the whole house at night, right? Because the dog is usually in my son's room, but not tonight because they're not home. Anyway, now that y'all know all the business with my dog and my cat, Tom and Jerry in the background, right, Butterfly? Used to happen. Okay. During the December raid at the Koberger home, Marianne, Michael, and Amanda were taken to the Pennsylvania State Police Fern Ridge Barracks in Blakesley to be interviewed separately while Koberger was taken into custody on a warrant for murder. The couple's third child, Melissa, lived in New Jersey and was not present at the time. Marianne's comments to FBI special agents Jessica Mahoney, Matthew Mark Phillips, and Eric Bailey revealed her apparent lack of awareness for what her son was capable of despite her close bond. Her lack of awareness. He even sent her a thumbs up photo that morning, remember? Before he drove back over to Moscow to contemplate going in there and finding his sheath because he knew he left it. He forgot it, dropped it somewhere. He just wasn't sure where. He contemplated going back in there. Well, let me take my thumbs up first, send it to Mother, and then I'll have a phone call with Mother while I'm on my way back to Moscow. According to court documents. When the agents asked if she had any concerns about behaviors that might indicate his involvement in the murders, Marianne was steadfast in her denial. Never, ever, ever, she said. There's a mistake, something is wrong somewhere, and that's what I believe, and that's what I know in my heart. Marianne repeatedly denied her son's possible involvement and insisted her youngest child did not have anger issues or hold grudges. To her, it was simple. He's my angel. Oh. Y'all know it's hard for mamas to sometimes be like, yeah, my baby's a brat, but Some of us own that shit outright. Well, yeah, that today that kid's being a brat. You know what I mean? We'll own it. Some are just like, no, never, not my child. Never, ever, ever. But damn, that's hardcore to find out your baby did all that. Your angel did all that. You're like, what? But damn. I don't even know, man. If somebody came to me and said my baby did all that, I'd be like, holy shit, I need to talk to him right now. Where is he? Y'all ain't got to worry about this because I'm fixing to handle it if it's true. Let me at his ass. I'll get to the truth in just about 5 seconds. Y'all may not be able to, but I'm going to. Give me a minute. Bring me some coffee and shut the door. And don't come in here when you hear things getting loud. Mind your business. Mind your business, coppers. I'll get the answer for you shortly. And, well, I may or may not divulge what I find out. I'm a defense attorney now. I got attorney-client privilege between me and my baby. All right. Depends on what he tells me. Damn. That sounded like my mom. It depends on what you about to tell me, girl. Tell me first, then we'll make a decision. All right. Oh, Lordy. He named his parents' mother and father in his phone. Remember, we learned that during the Cellbrite couples interviews about what was found in his phone when they did their forensics on the phone or on his devices. They would. The Daily Mail previously revealed that Koberger had an intensely close relationship with his mom and their multiple calls. Yeah, that was in the court documents too, how they would always call each other and have multiple calls, and it was mother and father in the phone contacts. Instead of saying mom or dad or mommy, daddy, whatever you call him, a lot of us, mom, mother, mama, whatever, he's over there, mother, father. We're like, okay, very formal. His mom was his primary source of communication, and he spoke to her all the time, every day and night, said Heather. That's what Heather Bernhardt said, a forensic expert who analyzes electronic devices for the state. Calls from Koberger to his parents would often begin as early as 4 a.m. and would end very late at night. Damn, it's like all day, guys. 4 a.m. to late at night. Y'all know you love your babies, but damn, give mama a break. You're in college. Ain't you busy? Don't you got somewhere to be? I'm like taking it easy right now, and you're ruining my nap time or something. I don't know. Y'all know what I mean. That's overkill. 4 a.m. until very late at night. He must needed a lot of reassurance. You know what I'm saying? He's fragile. It's okay, baby. You can do it. You're the little engine that could. Koberger called his mom just 2 hours after his killing spree at around 6 a.m. on the 13th of November, speaking for 36 minutes. Cat just came back and meowed. Okay. Yeah, 6 a.m. he calls her, and they spoke for 36 minutes. Marianne does not appear to mention the call to the agents. Oh. Damn, Marianne, why not? She didn't mind telling them everything else. Nothing stood out on that day, on November 13th. Nothing stood out, Marianne. Not a phone call for 36 minutes with your angel. Huh. Despite being the person he was closest to, Marianne's interviews revealed there was a lot she did not know. There are always a lot they didn't know, isn't there, guys? Ouch, that pesky little sheath came back to bite him square in the ass, didn't it? I've always imagined how he felt and how he reacted the moment he realized, holy shit, where's my sheath? I got my balaclava. I got my K-bar. Where the hell is that sheath? Did he beat himself up about it? Did he tell himself how stupid he really was? Did he physically take fists and pound himself in the head? You know how you see the little meltdowns people have on TV? Did he do all that? Or did he say, it's okay, nothing to worry about? Did he wonder, did I leave any DNA on there? I'm sure I didn't. I took all the precautions. Hell, we saw him at the DMV wearing his gloves inside, signing papers and all. Put them on as he went inside. Remember, Lana did the interview with the girl talking about him wearing the gloves during the thing. Yeah. Wonder why he was doing all that. Oh, yeah, because he knew he left his sheath somewhere, and there was a possibility he might have had a speck of DNA on that thing. How much of his arrogance told him, no, you don't, you're good. You took all the precautions. Oh, I don't know. I've often wondered what went through his head when he realized he lost that sheath. I think there's always a method to his madness. Taking the phone was one of them. Doug, I'm convinced. I'm convinced of it. I don't know why. That's always bugged me. Of course he wouldn't borrow a friend's car or rent a car. That's ridiculous. Take my own. You can't prove it's mine. It's a white car on grainy footage at night. Big deal. Prove I did anything except drive around in my car. Or a car was driving around. Just prove it's me in that car. All that. As far as she was aware, he had adapted well to the move. He seemed happy and had been making friends, according to the transcript. Really? You see all them complaints that WSU did do? Well, they don't do a lot over there, but they had a lot of complaints filed about your son, the angel. In that short amount of time he was over there making friends, he was also compiling quite a few complaints against him. Huh. According to he lied to mother, right? Mother, I'm making friends. With every new complaint, I got a new friend, mother. According to the transcript, though, she didn't know the names of a lot of them. In reality, Koberger's time in Washington was tumultuous. At WSU, at least 13 formal complaints had been made against him by other students in the criminology program, with classmates and professors describing him as sexist, creepy, and exhibiting stalker-like behavior. Oh yeah, WSU has those professors that says, looking back, we knew. Oh yeah, and that one time we did say, hey, if we let this guy stay here and give him a degree, he's going to turn out weird one day and do some shit. They literally said that in the document. WSU did. That's not a good look. Especially you got a big lawsuit against you right now by the families. That wasn't a good look at all. Not a good move. He was fired as a teaching assistant and lost his PhD funding when he returned home for the holidays in mid-December, just days before his arrest. There was that one report I read over there in WSU says even if you find this white car, don't do anything and don't talk about it on the radio. I was like, what the hell? What kind of investigation? There's the private channels and y'all can go to. I get it. The investigators are going to go there. Y'all didn't want it discussed at all on the channels. I was like, why? That's weird. Didn't want nobody to know. Killers among us. Lawsuits and all, right? Ouch. Anyway, that's a whole other rabbit train. That's a long black train to jump on there. Let me just tell you, that's a whole other thing. That's not even a rabbit hole. It's just a dark, dark train to travel. That's what that is. Yet, when asked if there were any concerns about his time at WSU, Marianne told the agents there weren't, adding that he just finished a semester with a 3.8. 3.8. There's like book smart, right? There's very, very smart, there's genius smart, there's you can be a genius and have no common sense whatsoever. You can have a lot of genius about crime, but when it comes to street smarts, be an absolute disgrace, right? Know nothing. Don't know how to implement it. There's a lot of ways you could look, or you could be extremely smart with both, right? And some people are for a long time, some of these crooks are. This guy made a huge mistake leaving the sheath, but that was it. If honest to God, if we looked at this logically, and if Koberger hadn't left the sheath, would they have ever found his name to pull phone records to prove he was in the area to begin with? Do you see what I'm saying? No. Because the car being seen on grainy footage was not going to get you there. And I don't know how long it would have took WSU to finally realize that that guy getting all the complaints that they're about to fire because of those complaints that drives that white car is that guy that Moscow is looking for. I don't know how long that really would have took them. So if he hadn't left the sheath, this guy wouldn't be sitting where he's at right now. I don't know how they would have got to his name, because IGG got him there with his 3.8 semester crazy demon shit. Outside the classroom, he had struggled. This is our hybrid killer, Dr. G. There ain't a textbook written about this one yet. He is the new textbook. I'm sure Ramslin's on it. Outside the classroom, he had struggled to interact with people, and women who encountered him later described him as bizarre, socially awkward, and creepy. So the standard, you know. He doesn't have any girlfriends right now, Marianne said of possible romantic interest, adding that he had a couple, but not a lot, in the past. He was not a party animal, not a drinker, but just a regular guy who liked running, being outdoors, and nature, she told the FBI. What else did you tell him about your angel? About your boy? Oh, look, there's Ramslin. See, I told you. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my bones. She's like, don't worry, Salty. I got this. I'm working on it, man. In my opinion, she's talking to Brian Koberger, and he's talking to her. Why not? When he returned home for the holidays, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, she said. Koberger said, this damn cat. Koberger said he had been happy to see the family dog Scout, who he had called his Bubba, or Bleebin, and largely spent time with the family. He calls his dog Scout his Bubba. Marianne described her son as a homebody who doesn't have a big group of friends. He touched base with one of his best friends from Arizona, who's still in Arizona. Oh, where at in Arizona? Ugh. I'm scared to ask where at in Arizona. It's asking for a friend. Yikes. But no, he's been mostly home with the family, just chilling. She described her son as very organized and acknowledged that sometimes he's up at night, traits that would later track with the level of planning that went into his nighttime crimes. At another point, Marianne voiced concerns about impending media coverage once news of Koberger's arrest would break. So now my son's face is going to be plastered all across the country, she says. Based on her comments to the FBI, Marianne believed her son was innocent and that his arrest for the murders of 4 young students was nothing but a really catastrophic mix-up. This is a nightmare. This is an absolute nightmare, she said at one point. I'm sure that it was. Look, and they just had no freaking idea that the day they took this picture, that very day. And Kaylee puts in the caption how lucky she was to be surrounded by these people. Later on in the middle of the night, 4 of them would be dead. And 2 of them traumatized by a masked man for no freaking apparent reason. After fighting the charges for more than 2 years, Kohberger suddenly pled guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary in July, weeks before his capital murder trial was set to begin. Under a plea deal, he avoided the death penalty and was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole, while he is also waiving all rights to appeal. So I don't know how much that book's going to help him, right? Because Lord help that dude if he tries to cry ineffective counsel, because he's going to get laughed at. I don't even know if they would finish reading the brief on that. They would laugh. You know what I'm saying? He's trying to get an appeal based on that shit. That's what they would say. Tisha Stock and Lori Vallow got a better chance, Bubba. His parents, Marianne and Michael, attended his change of plea hearing, watching their son confess to his vicious crimes. 2 weeks later, Marianne was joined by Amanda at the sentencing. Michael and Melissa were absent. Since then, Marianne has maintained her public silence about her son's crimes. Her daughter Melissa, the only family member to speak out, told the New York Times that their mother prays for the victims and their families every single day. Remember, we read that interview here, guys, that the sister did a while back? She broke her silence and did that interview, and we read that here. Okay. It's wild. What are y'all talking about there? Yeah. Yeah, I think so, Mother. I think Mother had a lot to say about that plea deal. Do you know what did it? I wonder if a time ever came when she point blank asked him, "Did you do it?" Was there things about the evidence that she knew? Like, she knew the questions that she was being asked. You know, she wasn't just interviewed by the FBI that one time, right after he was arrested or during the arrest. She was interviewed by the defense. She was coached by the defense. She was told by the defense about evidence they do have, what kind of testimony they would be expecting, all of those things to get them prepped and ready for this trial they're about to have. I think a lot of him saying, I'm going to ask for a plea deal, because he went to them. The defense went to them. You know, the prosecution didn't say, hey, would you consider taking a plea deal? It was opposite, right? So something definitely triggered Brian Kohberger into wanting to do that. And I think it was all to do with Mother. It's just wild, guys. It's getting late. I'm not going to show any of that guy's interviews, but I'm going to finish reviewing them throughout the day tomorrow, probably, just because I'm nosy. I can tell y'all where to listen to these interviews at. And I might bring, I actually did a couple of, if I do timestamps on certain parts of the interviews, then I don't have any problem coming on here and playing clips of it to just like to talk about it for a few minutes. I don't even know if it's worth talking about, right? Because a lot of this about this book can be completely debunked, backed up with court documents and records in the case and things that were tested, and as to why this is that way and that way. It's a shame that the person who wrote the book can't even seem to come out and answer legitimate questions that are asked. That's what bothers me the most, right? Your appearance now that you've wrote this fantastic book, um, and did what you did to the people who support Koberger and get the internet fired up, but you can't seem to answer real questions as to why you think what you think and why you're pointing this or that out and how you want it to be our decision. Here, I didn't say it, you did, kind of thing, right? That's what he basically has said that I'm hearing repetitively in these interviews that he's doing. Um, and one thing about it that I can't get past either is this damn leak situation. It's not cool. He said how he met, or not how he met, this is how he got involved or got access to whatever he had access to in this case. He's a former FBI agent. His friend obviously is an FBI agent. He says the friend they met for coffee. Hey, what are you working on? This. What are you working on? That. Oh, hey, why don't you take a look at what I'm working on? Give me your opinion. And that's how it starts. Really. Got a whole team of FBI specialists over here in the Idaho Four. We can probably name every single one of them. Their names are now being redacted from documents, but we already know their names. All of them. Huh. So FBI agent that worked the case said, hey, here, take a look at this case I'm looking at. Okay. That's some Sire kind of stuff right there. The judge called him a conspiracy theorist. That's all I'm saying. So that's how it went. And then all of a sudden he has he has all the access to everything in this case that nobody else has ever had. That's not cool since everything hasn't been unsealed yet by the court. Only 2 sets so far, and 1 set was giveth and then taketh away situation. So I don't know. Somebody might be in big trouble again. Somebody might want to email Judge Hippler, hey, that investigation you're conducting into the leak, into the Dateline situation, the Idaho Four case, you might want to take a look at this book and what this guy is out here saying, man. And I don't trust these FBI agents any longer. We got them talking to guys who write books, sharing information in a case with them that's under seal. And we got FBI agents giving source information to mainstream media turned YouTubers. In the Nancy Guthrie case, several of them apparently. So yeah, we can make a big deal about it, right? We could, I guess. So I don't know. There's just a lot about this guy's book that's irritating in a way. But at the same time, it's like, huh. But like I said, there's at least one person I know of out there that I feel like starting to ask the right questions about this guy's motives. Let me say that, right? Because of the fact that he didn't seem to know facts about the case, and when specifically asked about the shoe print, oh, you guys know about that? What do you know about that? It's like, dude, what are you talking about? Do we know about that? That shit's been out there in court documents for forever. What do you mean? Do we know? What do we know about it? What do you know? Right? Oh, a cleanup occurred. Oh, here we go with that shit again. Yeah, it's wild. All right, guys, it's getting late. We reviewed a lot. I've talked a lot. Of course, had to play our Brian Enton. Hang on, let me check something real quick. What's going on here? Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. I was sorry. I was checking something my mods had said. I got it. What? This cat. It's weird that she's even bothering me tonight. All right, guys. I do have a video I want to review with you guys because remember I kept saying, "Oh, if you've been around a minute after this case was over, I really wanted to get my hands on the Cellbrite report and hear more from the Bernhardts." Right? Watched a lot of the interviews they did after Brian Koberger took the plea deal because they did analyze all of the devices and how they came into the case was not it was an FBI agent, that was working the case that has worked with them in the past, did contact Heather Bernhardt because they knew something was up with Koberger's shit. There was something up with these devices and they needed more. So they got in touch with her. And she's like, hey, not only do you get me, but you can get my husband too. His expertise was more like in the devices of the laptop region, right? That kind of thing. So they got both of them. Anyway, Tanzola was the investigator's name. And they did a panel of Cellebrite, those two from Cellebrite, and along with Tanzola. Anyway, I want to watch it because the title alone was what really I was impressed with it, and I want to hear because a lot goes into the digital forensic, right? It's really important, the cell phone data, because if you go to a trial, it's like how much can you rely on this data, right? How accurate. And if y'all sat through Karen Reed and all the damn data experts we were exposed to and what we had to hear about all that data, it's insane. And how they will dispute each other, right? They'll dispute each other all day long and twice on Sunday, as the judge would tell us. It could go on and on and on for days if you're not careful with these experts. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. My program's better. No, mine's better. It's exhausting. But cell phone data is huge in cases. And what they're able to extract and learn from those phones and what your phone says about you. That's intriguing to me. And I want to know more. So we're going to do that, but we'll do that tomorrow. I'll come back tomorrow. I'm not doing anything this weekend. In fact, I'm not going anywhere. What is tomorrow? Saturday? Yeah, I don't have any plan tomorrow. There was something that I feel like there was something I was going to watch, but I don't recall what it was. Because there's no race this weekend, no race to go watch. My brother's not ready to race right now anyway, so I wouldn't probably go anyway. So I'm not going nowhere yet. I'm getting ready to start fishing soon. I want to go fishing with my daddy. Niles, Niles, welcome. Salty, how are you doing? I'm good. How are you? Good. We've had a lengthy live tonight. I went live tonight, y'all, instead of daytime. It's been a few weeks since I went live at night, right on the weekend. Yes, thanks. Right, like Forrest says here, thanks everyone for coming in and cussing and discussing with us. Y'all know it. Let's come in and cuss and discuss. What is going on? I don't know. The gifts are weird. There you go. What? Y'all are sending those gifts. I can't figure it out yet. Let's see. There was a notification in the back end about it. It's basically made for like the vertical lives, like something similar to what the TikTok does, something similar to that TikTok stuff. But I don't know how to explain it, and I don't know how to interpret it, right? But real happy sent a high five. Thank you for that. Pammy did the same thing. High five. Thank you for that. For whatever those are, we appreciate all of that, guys. And I appreciate y'all coming in, listening to me ramble, listening to me get off track sometimes, and sharing your thoughts with me. I appreciate that more than anything, and unpacking some of this stuff with me. I'd be sitting here just talking to myself doing it if I, otherwise. If do y'all have a preference if I go live tomorrow? What do you guys have planned on Saturdays? Usually I don't do anything on Saturdays. Like I don't go live on the weekends. I did occasionally for a little bit there. but normally I don't. I like take Saturday in case I want to go do something. My mods may have things planned. We can do an evening stream. I want to watch that video with you guys. So gifts are for visual excitement, Real Happy says. It's gift packages next to the dollars, still money. Yeah, I don't know. That's cool. I don't know how it works, but we'll figure it out. We'll see. We will see, won't we? We'll learn as we go. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool ways to do things. That's always fun. And thank you for the support on Buy Me a Coffee, guys. I super appreciate that as well. Y'all make, coming on here, you guys are why I come on here and talk, right? And really, if any of you, I've tried to get a couple of you to come up and talk to me, but it's like y'all are like, look, you don't got to be camera shy. I'm not on camera. You don't got to be voice shy. Don't be voice shy. We won't make fun of accents around here. Critical thinkers. All right. I'm going to go. I'm going to go grab a snack. Let these dogs outside for a little while, do their thing. I'm going to go stare at the stars and see how pretty it is tonight. I live in the country, so it's dark outside, so I get a really good view of the sky, too. Coburger would be envious. You can even see the satellites on a good night. You can look up there and just concentrate. You can see the satellites going across the sky. It's pretty freaking wild. That's one of my favorite. I always love doing that. I go out there, I'm just like mesmerized by the nighttime. There's nighttime birds out there that sing, and I'll find that, looking for shooting stars you see occasionally, and I'll find that one satellite and I'll just watch it travel across the sky. It's kind of like meditation. Y'all try it next time you go outside if it's super dark where you live. Like Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood, that light pollution sucks, so we didn't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I want it dark. I couldn't stand to be in a city and have to walk outside and be so much light I couldn't see the stars. Wouldn't you hate to look up and you could see the sky but still not see the stars? That's bullshit. You're in the middle of nowhere, Hawkeyes? Me too. I'm in the middle of nowhere. Put my coffee link in the description. I will do that. I put it in the chat at the beginning. There we go. Butterfly linked it into the chat for you guys. It's there. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to go get a snack, let the dogs out, and then I'm going to chill out and relax. And maybe there'll be something good on YouTube tonight that I haven't seen yet that I can listen to while I'm relaxing. Y'all listen to crime while y'all relax? I can't be the only one. I can't be the only one. All right, guys, we'll watch out for case updates over the weekend as usual. We'll be back on Monday with a full show and see what's happening. And I do have another show that I want to get to on like I said, an update on the Mickey Stein's case. It's not really an update on the case so much as it's something that happened that pertains to the case that I want to get to and cover. Brian Enton did also do a video on that as well, because something finally happened, and then what we can talk about now. So anyway, I want to cover that too, but I was going to do that tonight actually and do this book shit tomorrow, but I switched it. But I still want to get to the Bernhardt stuff too. So anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow at some point, and maybe again Sunday. Well, who knows? We might make a weekend out of it. I don't know. It's too much? I don't know. I might get tired of it. Anyway, y'all keep the bell on. Stay tuned, and maybe I'll see you back here tomorrow evening, and we'll get to some more of this stuff. Y'all be safe out there in them YouTube streets or on social media, period. Go get your snacks and get your sleep on. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you all for watching this here video. Please like and subscribe and follow. Much love from Little Yas to